Hello and welcome to A Review to a Kill, the James Bond retrospective podcast where we rewatch every Bond from Connery to Craig to review and rank each one. I'm your host, Special Agent Sedgwick, and returning for this debrief is an agent that you just can't fridge.
Carter. Chris Carter. Nah, you can't fridge me. I'm ice cold.
Today, we are reviewing Casino Royale, the 21st Bond outing from Eon Productions. Eon's swing at the first Bond novel and a major reboot to the series, ditching the episodic formula for a 5-movie standalone run that will have a start and a finish, with everything in between connecting. In an attempt to counteract criticism of the series' unrealistic elements, Eon would instead explore a less experienced, more grounded, and more vulnerable Bond. Also, after critics savaged Buy Another Day, they limited their product placement and partnerships. It's not gone, but it is a lot less.
Sorry, I had to laugh so much right there because, yes, they limited it, but man, was it not that limited it.
You have to admit to yourselves that they've been doing the same formula for 40 years and just upgrading the ways that they presented it, and a reboot was necessary.
I got goosebumps thinking about it all over again, Matthew. This movie was so good.
The film premiered at the Odeon Leicester Square and the Empire in London on the 14th of November 2006, with Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip in attendance. In January of the next year, it would become the first Bond film to play in mainland Chinese theaters. Reception for the new Bond start was tremendously positive. It was praised for reinvigorating the franchise, for its performances and directing. It broke all kinds of records at the time, and often ranks among, if not the best, of the Bond films.
I don't know how you could objectively look at the Bond films in total like we have and not rank this as the best or one of the best Bond movies ever made, because this is on a different level. It was a complete shift.
Exponential upgrade.
Hands down, a next level film.
It's not just one of the best Bond films, it's one of the best films.
Right, one of the best films, period.
Made for $150 million, it made $616 million in the box office.
Woo, baby.
The film racked up the awards, nommed for 10 BAFTAs, winning 2. Craig was the first actor ever to receive a BAFTA nomination for a performance as James Bond. It won Saturns and was nommed, or won, so many other awards that I'm not even going to list them further. Produced by Babs Brock and Mike Wilson, starring Daniel Craig. We've said before, Fleming hoarded Bond around to whoever at first, and rights to this film were floating around until Eon got them. They still didn't have rights to Spectre thanks to that chode McClory, and that's why Quantum exists. They wanted to do for Bond what Batman Begins did for Batman. They wanted to avoid CGI and do things the old-fashioned way. Broccoli also felt that all the frivolity didn't feel appropriate after the 9/11 attacks. And she's right, because try to remember where we were as a society back then. America's #1 show was about a super government agent whose power was torture.
Are we talking about 24?
Yeah.
Oh man, Jack Bauer. His special power was torture. I like that because that's kind of funny. It's kind of true.
Brosnan had a 4-film contract that expired, and he was asking for a lot more. He also had his agent do all of the negotiating while Brosnan was in Bermuda on another film set. And yet, he was still dumbstruck and butthurt when it didn't work out. Maybe you could have participated in the negotiations if you're going to pretend to be blindsided later on.
I did not know that about him. I thought he just retired after that one.
No, he acts like they pulled the rug out from under him, but he didn't participate at all in negotiation. His agent said, "Yeah, I'm talking to him." All right, they're not talking to me anymore.
Right.
And then they called him personally and said, "We're moving on." And he's like, "What? Well, what did you expect?"
Well, yeah, of course.
You're asking for more.
Yeah, nah, son.
So they hired Craig, who garnered Keaton-like groans, to much the same outcome, though.
The people who were groaning about him being James Bond were the people who didn't see Layer Cake.
James Blonde. The production logos show in black and white. The dots don't come out. Instead, we fade in from black, still in black and white, to an office in Prague. The office block is Danube House in Prague. Most of this film was shot in the Czech Republic. We see Malcolm Sinclair's Dryden getting out of his 2002 Skoda Superb and looking around nervously. The low close-up heightens this. We cut to him in the elevator, hearing only the faint hum and watching the floors tick up. He walks to his office and enters, finding his safe open. He freezes, and there's a faint pulse of percussion, like a heart skipping a beat. If you thought the cinematography and directions were game-changing in GoldenEye, you haven't seen anything yet. This opening seems like a film that's about to win all the awards at Cannes. French art house shit.
This was so noir. You couldn't have a more perfect opening for a reset of a Bond movie than to just put it in black and white. Dark tones and shadows. Perfect. Definitely art house. There's no other way to explain it. You guys, this movie still gives me goosebumps. So good.
Dryden turns to see Bond, seated, waiting. Bond breaks the silence by telling him that M doesn't mind side hustles, just not selling secrets. Dryden sits at his desk and opens the drawer to see his gun. He steadies himself and bluffs his innocence. And anyway, if M was so sure he was bent, she would have sent a 00. Bond's file shows no kills for Her Majesty. Dryden goes to remind Bond that it takes 2 to be promoted to 00 status, but Bond interrupts him confidently to finish his thought, a power move of suggestive language.
That's right. I like how when he opened the drawer and saw his gun, he instantly knew he'd be all right. I suppose by that time Dryden had become old and lazy and complacent because he made a lot of mistakes that he shouldn't have working for MI6. Such is life. When you become an old spy who's selling secrets and making money, you get cushy, you get soft. And then they send some young punk out there to balance the scales. And it's very clever them sending Bond because Dryden's in charge of who becomes 00 agents. You would know. Why not send the young punk to go ahead and get his aces with a mission like this?
We instantly cut to a more heavily exposed and grainier black and white flashback of Bond beating the shit out of a dude in a bathroom. This shit is gritty, and I'm not just talking about this film stock. This is the most visceral, brutal fight that we've ever seen in a Bond film, and it's not even close.
It's not even close. The stunt work in this film kind of set up everything for John Wick to be a thing in this movie. The fighting was super realistic and visceral. This is what a fight would be like between 2 professionals in a bathroom.
2 trained fighters, yeah.
Yeah.
The choreography is impactful and realistic. The set breaks in badass and not goofy ways. This feels like a legitimate action fight with the best of them, and not just another silly Bond fight.
Being somewhat trained, as you and I both are, the fighting was on point. They're both accomplished fighters. And Daniel Craig doing all of his own stunt work, fucking magnificent. Like, let's go.
A dude sacrificed his body for the next 5 films in ways no Bond before him had.
Absolutely.
While Bond beats that guy senseless, we cut back to Dryden drawing his weapon on Bond, who sits unstirred. Dryden smiles and says, "Shame, we barely got to know each other," and pulls the trigger. Click. Bond holds up Dryden's clip, saying, "I know where you keep your gun. Suppose that's something." Dryden sinks. He knows he's dead and is already accepting it. He just asks how his contact, Fisher, played by Duad Shah, died. And Bond replies coldly, "Not well." And when I say coldly, I mean like we've never seen in this franchise before from a Bond or a villain. It's badass.
So cold. You know for a fact this man is a practiced killer. He may not have 2 bodies for the Queen, but he's definitely got some bodies.
Oh yeah, in the military, he racked him up. We cut back to the flashback of Bond savagely strangling this dude and then drowning his ass in a sink. They don't kill him in 3 seconds either. The flashbacks are when the music kicks in, and it stings with intense edge-of-the-seat beats. So you feel every second of watching Fisher struggle to not die in this bathroom. Bond is almost monstrous in his actions and is immediately hit with the weight of it all when he's done.
Killing a man with your bare hands, feeling someone die from your actions has got to be a pop to the psyche.
I really love this moment. It's blink and you miss it. A second and a half of this face washing over him like, holy shit, I just did that. And then his face resets like someone hit a button on a computer and he just moves on. And it's so amazing.
Just doing my job.
His brain in that moment compartmentalizing, and it was amazing.
Matthew, I noticed so many little ticks and tells. If you pay attention, they're all there. All the signs are there.
Back with Dryden, who says, "Made you feel it, did he? Well, don't worry." The second is, and James shoots him dead. Dryden flies from his chair, and Bond says, "Yes, considerably." making an almost sarcastic face. And I love how for James, he just meant the effort involved. Pop, yep, it was easy.
Man, why didn't I do that the first time?
Yeah, you're a bitch compared to your boy. We then cut back once more to the flashback to see Bond picking up his gun when Fisher pops back up and aims his gun at Bond. So Bond turns and fires, and the gun barrel frames the screen, and the blood drips transition us to the title. As this was the twist of doing the gun barrel and the pre-title as one sequence, and I love it.
For the first time ever, the gun barrel scene is contextual to the movie. It starts at the end of the pre-title sequence. Perfect. That was absolutely perfect. You can't direct or write better than that. This is the flashback. This is what happened. Boom. Now, let's get to the movie.
They've been making the same movie over and over since Goldfinger. They finally did something different.
They finally did something different and did it right. The gun barrel scene was sharp and focused and story-driven. I enjoyed it very much.
The opening chords of Chris Cornell's You Know My Name strike up, and holy fuck, this song is awesome. Rip Chris.
I like this song too because I like Chris Cornell a lot. Rest in peace, young man. It's up there. I really don't have any critiques about the song that I can really point to at all because it's a great James Bond song.
The titles lean into the casino imagery of card suit kaleidoscopes, card borders as sprawling veins, and patterns reminiscent of Las Vegas carpeting. The titles are the first true modern computer titles, made in the programs and with the styles that artists like myself would still be using in 2023.
The muted colors, the fractal lines, everything in the shape of a card, a club, a spade, a diamond. No silly silhouettes of women that don't have anything to do with the movie.
The fractals were great.
The fractals were fantastic. The silhouetted scenes of James Bond whipping ass and shooting guns throughout the whole title.
Angelina Jolie, Charlize Theron, Rachel McAdams, and Olivia Wilde were considered for Vesper. Judi Dench, even in a reboot, was always going to be M, as she was deemed irreplaceable. Way too many people were up for Bond. It was, until what we are currently going through, the longest and most speculated time between Bonds. Camera operator Roger Pierce, brother of Sean Timothy and Daniel George. Script supervisor Jay Bourne? Huh?
Oh, is it? Was this a Bourne Identity film? What?
Visual effects and miniatures Steve Begg. Supervising art director Simon Lamont. Stunt coordinator Gary Powell. The veins split open and red hearts pour out on the line in the song, "The coldest blood runs through my veins." Vector Bond and Ops fight and shatter into suits.
Playing cards.
Special effects and miniatures, Chris Corbould. Main titles by Daniel Kleinman, and wow, dude learned some shit on the series break, didn't he? These are amazing.
Oh yeah, I don't know who Daniel Kleinman is, but I do now.
He's been doing the titles.
Has he?
Since Tomorrow Never Dies.
Really?
Yeah.
Apparently he went to go learn some stuff. And let's do everything different. We're not doing anything the same. And thank God for that. Watching this movie, I felt like there was a whole new crew on this. I didn't think anybody came back.
You're about to be very surprised.
Yeah.
Second unit director Alexander Witt. Crosshairs turn into roulette wheels. Edited by Stuart Baird. Red clubs make gunshots. Diamonds are throwing knives. So are spades. Director of photography Phil Mayhew. This guy is on God mode.
Yes.
Production designer, the immortal Peter Lamont. He's been in the series in some way since Goldfinger, movie 3, and he made it all the way to Craig's era. But sadly, this is his last film. Goodbye, and thank you, Mr. Lamont, even if you were slightly racist about your set dressing in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And yes, I'm talking about those statues in the casino.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Music by David Arnold, You Know My Name, written by David Arnold and Chris Cornell, performed by Chris Cornell. This song is so fucking good, and it's mostly because Chris helped write it.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
Executive producers Anthony Way and promoted Callum McDougall. Gunshots to the Seven of Hearts makes a 007, which transitions into an ancient computer screen showing Bond's promotion to 00. Just to make sure that's clear before we start proper. There's a credit for Ian Fleming and his OG novel, which is a pretty nice touch. Screenplay by Purvis and Wade with Paul Haggis. Produced by Mike Wilson and Babs Brock. directed by the man who literally saved Bond, not once, but twice. Martin motherfucking Campbell, who by the end of this review will be sitting pretty with his 2 films at the top of the cards.
Martin Campbell directed this movie?
Same guy who did GoldenEye.
But he didn't do any of the other ones of that era.
Nope.
I thought he did he did none of the other ones of that era.
Nope.
The same guy who did GoldenEye.
He did GoldenEye and he deuced it, and then he came back to save the franchise again, and then he deuced it.
Good on him. He is the saint of James Bond. He knows how to direct a James Bond movie. I'm just going to say. He knows what it takes. He knows how to make his actors give him what he needs.
I just like how 3 movies after GoldenEye, he had to come back and be like, really, guys? I just fixed it.
Right? It's like, how did you get here again? We were so far from here.
All right, I'm going to go even further this time. There's no way you can fuck it up. And then he saw Spectre.
And then he saw Spectre.
Quentin Tarantino expressed interest in directing, but despite rumors and what he says online, Eon was not interested in his extravagant style.
I could not imagine a Quentin Tarantino James Bond film. I'm sorry.
I don't want one. That would be insulting, honestly.
Quentin Tarantino's got his niche, and James Bond ain't it. James Bond is a classier film. I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino fan. I've seen every one of his movies.
His entire career is an homage to blockbuster cinema. And I mean blockbuster as in like the video store.
Yeah, his entire career is an homage to black exploitation movies. And they're great. Don't get me wrong. They're all fucking fantastic. But I don't want to see Quentin Tarantino touch the stuff that has more refinement than that.
Cut to a small child soldier running through a warlord camp in Uganda. Actually shot in Buckinghamshire.
Really? They did a good job.
He's bringing cokes to warlord Stephen Obano, played by Isaac de Bacole, and his guest, Mr. White, played by Jesper Christensen. Impatient, Obano asks White how he can trust a man he's never met with his money, and Mr. White disclaims that he's only responsible for the introduction, and that's all his organization will guarantee. And it's important to remember that for when he actually gives a shit later.
Right. Mr. White is very clearly a little more than a middleman.
It's not a plot hole. He's doing his business disclaimer. Hey, I'm not really accountable, but of course he's going to go clean it up later because he actually is.
Right. Ultimately, he's accountable. Bigger picture.
Outside, a convoy of defenders pulls up and outsteps Le Chiffre. This time, immortalized by Mads Mikkelsen. Le Chiffre is played by the only guy that could give Tony Hopkins a run on the Hannibal character. He's dark, brooding, and tense as fuck, all without having to do or say much. He's sweating profusely and hitting an inhaler. He has a scarred, milked-out eye that weeps blood, and he's taking money from Obano to invest. Obano wants no risk in the portfolio, which is agreed upon, and no investment is without risk, bro.
Do you follow stock market?
Do you know how this works?
Like, you are basically playing roulette with your money.
Even sure bets have a small percentage of failure.
Right.
Le Chiffre has done this many times before, though, and is confident. He's a stone. So Obano agrees and hands over his queso cash. Le Chiffre is instantly on a sat phone with his broker, played by Tom Chadbourne, to short more shares in a company called Skyfleet, to which his broker advises him strongly that he's betting against the market. No one expects this stock to go anywhere but up. Le Chiffre slips in a Nike ad and tells him to just do it.
Mads Mikkelsen is such a good actor in everything that he does.
You're goddamn right.
This movie was so well cast. He's instantly terrifying, confident, and obviously has the upper hand or foreknowledge on any situation from the get-go, with just a few expressions and a few simple sentences. Well executed.
Cut to the slums of Madagascar, shot in the Bahamas, and we see a crowd betting on an all-time classic between a mongoose and a cobra. In the crowd, we also see a badly burned African bomb maker named Malaka, played by Sebastian Foucan, who is much better known as the father of freerunning or parkour. As Malaka bets and drinks, the camera zooms out and focuses on Joseph Milson's character, Agent Carter.
Yeah, not me. No relation. This is a poor portrayal of my namesake, which I won't forgive MI6 for doing this, because if this guy was supposed to be me, first of all, he's a little pale. Secondly, you're making rookie mistakes out here.
White Carter keeps touching his earpiece and being a noob. A quick swipe reveals Bond in what we'll call the rafters, before we see Malaka get a text of just the word ellipsis. You know, the word for the ... pause, or to indicate something intentionally left out.
Or an orbit.
This one on-the-nose word was all he needed, though. He nuff said fammed the phone into his pocket and moves to exit. White Carter holds his hand to his ear to report this, while staring, super obviously. Bond tries to tell him to put his bloody hand down, but it's too late, and Malaka spots the rookie mistake and cheeses it. Carter pulls out his weapon and chases, just to fall into the fight pit and accidentally discharge his weapon. Fire this man.
Fire this man.
Jesus.
I hope he's not a 00.
He's not. There's no fucking way.
How much time do you think passed between the title scene and this scene?
I don't think that much time has passed yet. I think it's been days to maybe a week or two since he's killed that person, because right after he blows up this embassy, he goes to M to get reamed out, and she goes, I literally just promoted you and I'm already regretting it. They literally try to imply that they're just rolling from the beginning still.
That's fair. I guess they would put him in charge of a mission right after promotion to 00 status.
Yeah, they sent him after a bomb maker. It seemed like a good, easy softball first mission. That's pretty much what she was implying to him. It was supposed to be.
Right.
But of course he's Bond, so he stumbles into something much bigger.
Of course.
Bond is angry and says he needs Malaka alive. The gunshot clears the crowd, and Bond decides to do it himself and gives chase off the rooftops. This sequence is legendary. It made parkour famous. Sebastian, as Malaka, gives it everything he has to show off his sport, performing mind-bending stunts with the grace of a ballerina, flipping over, under, and through objects instead of going around. My words will never do it justice, and it's only made better by the juxtaposition with Bond's tactics of handling the same obstacles. Where Malaka is a surgeon's scalpel, Bond is a sledgehammer.
He's a thinking sledgehammer.
It's a good analogy for how they're two tools handling the same thing. One is a scalpel, the other is a hammer. It's nothing to do with their intelligence. One is smooth, slick, clean, swiping. The other will just bust through everything.
Well, he busts through a wall, but I have to say, Bond did a few things that were smart.
Yeah, but they were all destructive. You'll see. They run into a construction site, and Malaka's skills are helping him get away, so Bond jacks a bulldozer. When Malaka thinks he's ditched Bond, the dozer crashes through the gates. And as epic as this was executed, and it was, since when did dozers have bulletproof glass?
I marked that down as well. I was like, I know they're tough, but I didn't know they were bulletproof.
One of the few flaws.
I'd have to look it up. It is one of the few flaws in this movie. Maybe because of flying rocks or something.
Malaka jumps up the structure being built and cat climbs the vertical I-beams. Bond runs up a crane as it's spinning and dives for the structure, barely catching it, which is also badass. Malaka murders some construction workers by Jim-kata-ing a dude with a torch and tank down to the ground. And still, they keep climbing. Every second of this is intense and heart-pounding, and as I said, constantly hitting you with feats that you've never imagined before this, back then anyway.
Well, yeah. This was phenomenal and all practical. This dude was really doing this stuff, which you don't mess up when you do this kind of parkour.
It'd be your last mess up.
Right. No fucking up.
The action is more high-octane than ever, and on top of that, they are executing and shooting these stunts in ways that give them more weight than we've ever seen them done with before. Malaka keeps murdering people and jumps to a platform out on a crane, so Bond follows. But by the time Bond jumps, Malaka is getting to the top of the crane. So Bond stands on the crane hook and kicks out the load locks, sending him right up to the crane arm and destroying everything beneath him. They climb on top of the arm, and Malaka fires at Bond, but only by sheer luck and stupidity was he out of ammo. So he throws his pistol at Bond, but Bond just one-hands it and throws it right back, hitting Malaka in the head.
Perfect timing. Such a good actor, flawless in his action.
When I was watching that movie for the first time back in 2006, I mean, as badass as the opening was and everything so far, and the sequence even to this point, the moment they were on that crane and Malaka threw his gun at him and he just one-handed it like Gina Davis in A League of Their Own, I was like, this is Bond, baby.
Like, oh, here we go. This is the dude right here.
Malaka falls and catches himself on the side of the crane. Bond drops down and they engage in a fistfight for the first time, as helicopter shots enforce the vertigo-inducing heights.
This was choreographed so well. You can see every slide, kick, block, one-handed punch, because you got to hold on with one fucking hand. It was well done.
Malaka dives for another crane, and then down further to the building, and then further down again. Breathtaking drops. Bond looks and, knowing he can't do it, jumps anyways. It's a perfect summary of how Craig's Bond starts out. The blunt instrument of the novel.
Right? He is a single-minded, focused instrument of pretty much destruction. You're absolutely right.
He doesn't flinch at gunshots, or if he does, he just slightly moves just so he could keep going at the bad guy, because his life doesn't matter as much as the mission, and I love it.
He's like, I'm going to catch this guy or I'm going to die trying.
Bond makes the second crane, only just, pulls himself up, and tosses himself down the big drops, almost killing himself. He chases Malaka through the building, and Malaka does a Mario wall jump in an elevator shaft to switch floors real quick, and Bond just takes a hole in the floor. Malaka high bars some drywall, and Bond just bursts through like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah!
It's perfect.
Malaka then gets super lucky with elevator timing and pulls off an insane double jump across a 30-foot gap. Bond assaults a scissor boom to get to the ground. Bro, is your back okay?
Right? You didn't jump a little bit before that hit the ground, soft your landing, bend your knees, try to roll out of that just a little
Something? Like, you're just going down with it all the way. Okay.
And you wonder why you're stiff now.
Bond chases Malaka out of the site and through the streets, but Malaka makes it to the Nambutu embassy and to supposed safety. But Bond says, fuck that. He jumps the fence and strolls right into the embassy official office. He gut kicks Malaka and disarms the official played by Valentine Noniella. Then kicks Malaka again. That's for making me jump off of shit. Who do I look like, Brosnan?
Brosnan had more wires.
Bond takes the official's gun and pistol whips him with it. He then grabs Malaka and makes his way out. Alarms blare. Soldiers run in. Bond tries to take some out by shooting water pipes instead of, the embassy soldiers. But there's too many of them, and they are raining hellfire on Bond. Malaka is hit in the leg, and now Bond is practically dragging him, making escaping with the man even less likely.
Me, as an agent, I would cut my losses right here. There was 50 dudes opening up with AKs who did not care who they were shooting. I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw at least 3 civilians go down in the hail of gunfire. That's just me. James Bond's a little tougher than I am, but he is James Bond.
There's an amazing bit where he pushes Malaka and beats the shit out of 2 guards real quick, and then grabs Malaka again. He throws Malaka from a window and jumps out after him. Bond drags the man to the gate, but is surrounded. Bond stands, holding Malaka's bag and a gun to Malaka's head with a "don't fuck with me" look on his face. The official says, "Listen to me," but doesn't say anything to listen to. Bond drops the official's gun and pushes Malaka away, just to instantly pull his own weapon and shoot the bomb maker, and then a couple of propane tanks to cause an explosion and escape with Malaka's bag. Inside, he finds some bomb parts and the phone. He sees the text, but it means all of dick to him right now. So for now, we'll cut to a heavenly body silhouetted in the sunset and getting out of the water and onto a sunseeker predator. This is Lashif's personal yacht, and cutting inside, we find the man playing cards with guests on board. Lashif's girl, Valenka, played by Ivana Milicevic, walks by, dripping wet and turning the heads of Lashif's opponents. Lashif weeps blood and gets defensive about it. He then goes all in, telling the man he's playing that, "I have 2 pair, and you have a 17.4% chance of making a straight." He dead stares the man, who then folds bitterly. Lashif is then approached by Krat, played by Clemens Schick, his right-hand man. Krat takes him to a Sony Vaio, informing them of Bond's escapades in Madagascar. Lashif, seeing his bomb maker dead, tells Krat to give the guests 5 minutes to leave, or throw them overboard.
That wasn't the first time you noticed the Vaio, was it? Because every computer's been a Vaio.
Every computer will be a Vaio.
Right?
Now everybody has a Sony. The music, the face, the voice. It's a perfect blend that gets right under the skin. He punctuates intense moments by hitting his inhaler, something that should be taken visually as a vulnerability, but it just highlights his creep factor, like a small match against the darkness of your house when the power goes out.
Because he's so dispassionate in this film. You could look at the dude and tell he has no human connection. He's a fucking lizard.
Cut to an establishing shot of the Palace of Westminster. Inside, we see M leaving a House of Commons committee room after being thoroughly told off. She complains about it to her man, Villers, to get an expo dump out of the way. Tobias Menzies plays Villers, named after a character from the novels. Menzies is an amazingly accomplished actor with a long and wide career in film and television classics, such as Rome, Game of Thrones, and The Terror.
I knew I recognized him.
M whinges that the government is clamping down when they never used to care, and Bond should have known better. Also, where is he? Back in her day, when an agent did something so embarrassing, they had the good sense to defect. Christ, she misses the Cold War. But didn't you just say no one cared what they did back in the day?
Right? But they had to defect? Like, they cared. Apparently, they cared so much that you fucking had to leave your country.
This sounds like one of those good old days stories where everything was actually worse, but they still pretend it was better.
Better? Right, yeah. I guess it was easier.
Cutting to Bond in a dark room, he removes the SIM card from an ancient cell phone and tries to trace the embedded data. He sees the ellipsis text was sent from the Bahamas and uses Google Earth in 2006 to pinpoint and visualize the exact spot it was sent from. He also notes the time that it was sent from the Ocean Club on Paradise Island. He takes out the card and gathers his stuff. He hears the penthouse lift being activated and partially closes the laptop. When the lift doors open, it's M. This is her apartment he just B&E'd into. She finds him sitting at a side table playing with cards. Thematic. But imagine you're the manager of a grocery store and one of your employees throws feces at a customer and you need to talk to them the next work shift. But before all that, you go home and find them in your living room.
Drinking your scotch, playing your cards.
You've got a bloody cheat, M rightfully scolds, and Bond says, "Sorry, I'll shoot the camera first next time." "Or yourself," M retorts. She's pissed. The bomb maker was a nobody. They wanted to question him, not kill him. She throws down the paper with a giant headline of MI6 kills unarmed prisoner. She thinks Bond showed no judgment, and she's half right. Bond knew he needed him alive, but also got to where he wasn't getting out with him alive and decided one less bomb maker would be a good thing. He was trying to use judgment, he's just still not making the best decisions either yet. But dude literally just got the job, lady. To him, new and inexperienced, losing the guy anyways and having him free was reasonably a less ideal option before the larger scope optics of accountability are brought before him. And even then, he still would do it again, just shoot the cameras first. This is 4D character building.
Oh yeah, he's a professional. He's like, I would shoot the camera first, and then you wouldn't have it on film.
He's petulant. He only gets half the point. He's almost disrespectful to know what the point is, but refuse to accept it.
It's kind of like he's confident he knows something is up. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows it's something.
He's got a gut feeling.
It's not even a gut feeling. This points to something bigger.
But he has no reason to really know any of that except to one word on a text. I mean, he could just be crazy. M complains about lost leads, which were lost anyways, and then demands to know how he found out where she lived. And he says, same way he found out her name, and gives us the only breadcrumb that it does indeed start with M. M threatens to have Bond killed if he even says her name, and should be having him arrested realistically as we speak, but moving on. She says it was a mistake to promote him, and he says that double O's have a short life expectancy, so her mistake should be short-lived.
And he was dead serious and ice cold about that shit, too.
We have a moment between the two. The dialogue here lays the foundations for Craig's Bond throughout the series, setting him on his path of growth over 5 films. She says he better be onto something good, because the state wants his head, and she just might feed it to them. She also warns him to never break into her house again, and Bond nods. Mum? Visibly shook, M looks over and sees her laptop, slightly open and glowing.
At this point, M thinks to herself, perhaps we have created a monster. She didn't realize exactly how good James Bond was when she gave him 00 status. He's good, but then to have that same efficiency turned upon her, she was shooketh.
She was, and I like how they actually put that in there. This movie is smart. There's so much nuance. We had probably the best end-to-end cast of actors that we've had. not just one or two great ones. Almost everyone here is a stellar, amazing, top of their game actor.
Right.
And they're all just feeding all the nuance into their character because they know that this movie is deeper than the ones they've made before, and they're not just hitting beats.
The writing was superb.
Cutting to Nassau, we see a de Havilland twin otter coming into land. Bond steps out and immediately sees Lashif's yacht. For real?
Right. How do you know?
Even still, like, what are the odds of it being right there?
Right there, right?
Right in front of him when he steps out.
And how come the boat is at the airport?
Because it's a convenient shot. It's a lazy shot is what it is.
Oh, well.
We cut again to Bond cruising in his rented silver 2006 Ford Mondeo. No, don't play the Bond theme. This car does not deserve the Bond theme.
Oh, I was a little disappointed, but it gets better.
Bond also has beta Google Maps on his Sony Ericsson that takes him to the one and only Ocean Club, full title.
Yes, full title, the one and only Ocean Club. So if you see another Ocean Club out there, it's a fake.
Bond has the valet take his car, and tennis girls double take Bond, 'cause of course they do.
Of course they do.
The hot chicks double take him.
At least it was a little subtler than it is in previous films.
It's not as bad as Connery's era, that's for damn sure.
Yes, a little subtler.
Bond kneels to pretend to tie his shoe. He scopes the cameras, 'cause of course he does, and just waits until very rude tourists mistake Bond for the valet. Bond takes the man's Rover and whips it around the lot before hard reversing into a division rail that hits the entire next row of cars, setting off tens of alarms. Bond walks away, tossing the keys and making this face that's so great and so Craig. If you really were a super trained special operative, everything would feel like stupid shit beneath you too. He's not a clown. He's not even really a playboy. He's an instrument, and I fucking love it.
He's a special operative.
He gets shit done, and that is it. Even the sex is to get shit done.
Right.
I mean, if you were taken as an orphan and basically trained to be a secret killer through Cambridge, the Navy, and then MI6, and he was taken as an orphan and pretty much chosen for this. So he's been trained his whole life for this. You got to understand, he doesn't go, ooh, I wonder what movie's coming out on Friday. He goes, I got to kill this person for the queen.
Right.
That's what he eats, sleeps, and has breathed since his parents died traumatically.
Right.
With the staff occupied, Bond walks right in and into the security office. He runs the security footage back to the time the text was sent and checks the spot to see some slimy bugger with a fucking Aston Martin DB5.
Right.
You know how much those cost nowadays?
A lot.
Millions.
They cost a lot of money.
Bond then goes to the front counter and asks for a spur-of-the-moment room in this high-end island resort and gets an ocean view villa. What the fuck? Bond also says he accidentally banged his door into a 64 Aston and asks who the owner is. The receptionist, played by Christina Cole, responds, Mr. Demetrios, who has a house up the beach. Cutting up the beach, actually New Providence Island, and land partially owned by Tiger Woods. We see Solange, played by Caterina Marino, riding a horse on the beach, followed by overexcited island children. We then see Bond doing his best Ursula Andress impersonation, and every female in the audience just splooshed.
Yeah, he definitely worked out a bit for this role. I had forgotten how big he was. Like, that dude is ripped. Look at him. Jesus.
He is feckin' huge.
Fucking massive.
This moment was talked about by every female I knew in the day as the moment they found their new favorite Bond. This iconic scene was an accident, as Craig was meant to just swim on, but he hit a sandbar and was forced to stand. Now that looks like a dude who could fight a group of goons at once.
Right? A couple punches from that dude, you might just reevaluate what you were doing.
You know, I think I might get that job at Walmart after all.
Right? Like, career choices.
I don't even want this job, man. Solange and Bond lock eyes before she returns to Demetrios. We cut again to M asleep, and hey, where was her husband when Bond broke in? The closet?
Probably.
M gets a call from Villers saying Bond's in the Bahamas. He's logged into the system under M's password and is looking up Demetrios. And through known associates, he finds Lashif.
Why not? We have to get them together some kind of way.
Cutting to later, Bond walks through the Versailles Gardens and enters the Ocean Club lobby, where he watches Demetrios playing cards and sleazing on a waitress. He also orders a drink from the bar, and as he turns, the Danish tourists, whose rover he smashed as a fake valet, turn and gawk at him in disbelief. Bond smirks and says good evening in Danish.
You must have me mistaken for somebody else, because I am definitely the man who crashed your car.
His attitude is so great. He's like, do something, bitch. Bond joins the card game, and they're playing Texas Hold'em, not Baccarat. And this is probably the biggest sore spot of the movie for me. Texas Hold'em was a white-hot fad around this time that was so big for such a short time that the WSOP still rides that long-ebbed wave. Everyone played it on handhelds, their phones, in real life, in tourneys, in casinos, at parties, and in movies. And now it's dated as fuck. Solange comes in for the hot girl rub, but Demetrios just complains that she's late, and he's hella down. Solange retreats to the bar, despondent, and we crossfade to later in the game. Bond has Demetrios on his last stack, and Demetrios goes all in, even trying to cut a check to add 20 grand, but table stakes, sorry sir. But the keys to my Aston are on the table, and Demetrios practically challenges Bond to take the bet, so Bond does, smiling.
Okay, you want to bet your car? I'm down, homie.
This is the Bond you don't challenge to do anything because he will and he'll make you pay for it.
Every time. Throw the car in there. I love a good Aston.
Bond goes all in, and Demetrios flips, revealing 3 kings. No Mark Wahlberg or Ice Cube. But Bond flips, trip aces, and wins. Bond rakes in the chips and pulls the old, and the valet ticket, just twisting the knife.
Oh yeah. Might as well have just said, yeah, sign that pink slip, homie.
This shit makes me giddy breaking it down. I loved this. It was so badass. The way he punks this guy is more badass than any Connery fight ever was.
Oh yeah. This Bond is smarter than the last Bonds. He's more physical than the last Bonds. And he's colder than the last Bonds. And they establish all the way throughout this movie.
And he is colder in the most badass ways, though.
Right. In the most badass ways, right?
Outside, the Aston pulls up, and Solange walks around to get in, just to be shocked when James pops open the driver's side, which is on the left, by the way. I believe it's the only Aston in the series to have left-hand drive.
Is it?
I think it's because he got this one in the Americas, so they went with a left-hander.
Quite possibly.
Solange now knows why her husband was so angry, and Bond offers her a ride home. She says she's not that cruel, and Bond smiles that maybe she's just out of practice. He then offers her a drink at his place, which isn't far. She gets in, and they drive around the valet circle and park where they started, cause duh, Bond's staying at the Ocean Club, remember? That gag only works on people with short memories.
You're right.
It's a gag that's legit for the character and not the audience.
It is.
Which I'm not complaining about because it makes the story feel more real.
Right? It's like the perfect Bond pickup line. I'm gonna race around here in a circle.
It's pretty good, actually.
Right.
We then cut to Demetrios, entering the SS Crimson Tiers. Demetrios is there to account for the bomber he chose being watched by MI6. Demetrios says he doesn't care if Le Chiffre actually trusts him, but he cares about his reputation and will make sure the job is done. He has someone else ready who just needs particulars and payment.
Well, of course he does. I'm not gonna pay for the bomber. Sorry, your last bomber got blown up.
He was just like, fuck you, Le Chiffre. I actually don't care what you think about me, but I'm not going to let you down because I'm not going to go have you spreading word that I fucking failed.
Right.
Cutting back to Bond on top of Solange when she asks if he likes married women. And yes, this Bond does. It's not just a joke. Hey, I did too before I settled down myself. I get it.
It's easier.
I think it's more of a power thing if you ask me. I'll tell you exactly why I did it because I felt more powerful than you if I stole your wife.
Yeah, it was kind of a power thing, I suppose.
And also, yes, you're right. There's no attachment because she's already attached to something else and we'll have to snap back.
Right.
She asks why nice guys can't be more like him, and he says, because then they'd be bad. And then he asks her about the mojito. Wait, wrong movie. She knows Bond is using her to get to her husband, but she doesn't care. She wants to go down. But all Bond cares about is what ellipsis means.
That's funny. Bond is definitely using her. She knows she's being used, but, he's bad.
It's very realistic, honestly. I'm not gonna lie.
Why am I attracted to bad boys?
Because you have a vagina. Just then, Demetrios calls his wife to tell her he's on the last flight to Miami. Out of bloody nowhere. And she's like, yay, I can bang this hunka man meat all night. But Bond calls room service and orders Bollinger and Beluga caviar. For one. Later, bitch.
Later, bitch.
Now she's gonna get killed and didn't even get the D.
Leaving wakes.
We cut to an insert of the Aston speeding off. But he must have made the flight and not been noticed on it because we cut to his taxi following Demetrios' taxi through the streets of Miami, actually shot in Prague.
Really?
Does that blow your mind?
A little bit. That's pretty dope.
The fact that they shot so much of this movie in places that aren't where they say they are is kind of nuts. Whereas usually that's a detriment for me, it's not this time. And before we even get to the rankings, I'll tell you why. Because usually I notice, and I didn't until I was researching locations of this film. I'm an American who never knew that wasn't Miami, and I've been to Miami.
That looked pretty Miami to me, so... No, they did a fantastic, like I said, the Uganda, I was like, okay, so maybe not Uganda, but Africa? But nah, you're like, nah, they're right there in Britain. I'm like, holy mackerel.
All you gotta do is fool me. That's the point of movie magic, baby.
That's the point of movie magic, just fool me.
Demetrios goes to the bodies exhibit and checks a duffel. He takes the tag and enters the museum. He leaves the tag for the duffel on a stack of chips, thematically enough, where some bodies are playing poker. But as Bond was watching him, he was made by Demetrios, who comes up behind Bond with a knife. Demetrios tries to walk Bond out, but Bond turns and grabs the knife. They struggle for control, and there's even a point where Demi is actually winning. And that's bullshit. Did you see this guy's triceps? Bond would have killed this tiny fucker so fucking fast.
Okay, so Matthew doesn't agree that the tension should have been heightened here. Based on the body size of our boy Daniel Craig coming out of that water, Demetrius should be dead. Just dead. Like, there's no chance. You got no chance, son.
You wanted to add tension to your movie, but really it just brought down the realism.
In defense, Demetrius always wears baggy clothes up top. He could be buff under there.
You can tell when they're not filling anything out underneath. The crazy thing is Bond doesn't even overpower Demetrios at all in this fight. Bond has to channel Roger Moore and pull the old, hey, what's that routine, before hitting and stabbing Demi.
I like that. The old glance over your shoulder all surprised all of a sudden. Oh shit, security.
I can't believe that worked.
Right, but yeah, it's like, you're in a knife fight. Don't look over your shoulder. This dude's got a knife.
It's not unbelievable because humans are stupid. I just would have said the same. I would have been like, man, I can't believe that worked.
Right.
Bond sits Demetrios' body on a chair and takes his phone, seeing another ellipsis text. He looks at the stack of chips, but the tag is gone. He runs to the bag check, and the duffel is gone. Bond runs outside and calls the number Demi texted just before dying. He sees a man answer the phone and follows him.
Spycraft 101.
Boom, baby. Actual spycraft. You know we love it when we actually see it in our fucking spy franchise.
Super smart.
This goon is Carlos, played by Claudio Santamaria. He takes the duffel back to the airport. The airport scenes were shot at Václav Havel Airport in Prague. The runway scenes, however, is Dunsfold Aerodrome near Guildford in Surrey. Bond follows Carlos to TSA, and hey, it's Richard Branson.
Is it?
Yes.
Was that really him?
Yes. Carlos makes Bond and disappears into a stall to change into an airport security uniform from the duffel. But Bond spots him putting in a code to get into a restricted door. Bond calls MI6 to get the code for the door, but then realizes that's what ellipsis is, and punches the numerical code for the word. Old school texting, kids.
I'll try it, but I would have still stayed on the phone with M in case there was something else, right? That was a 50-50. I give that one a 50-50.
It's the only information that Carlos was given. It was the only information that you're aware of that was given to the last guy as well. And he somehow got in that code. So it would have been my first thought in a heartbeat. I wouldn't have even thought to call. I would have tried it first. That's gamer logic. You're given something like that and you wait for it to fit.
Yeah, it is definitely gamer logic. I definitely would have tried it.
It's really funny how he says, I need him now. There's a bomb in the Miami-Dade airport. And then he just ghosts them.
And then he hangs up. He's like, oh, wait, never mind.
Fuck off.
Bugger off.
Villers Googles and finds out the Skyfleet S-570 prototype is being unveiled there tonight. The plane is actually just a modified Boeing 747.
Right.
Now inside, Bond chases Carlos, who turns on the sprinklers to clear the route ahead of him, and make Bond trudge through the evacuees. They make it to the tarmac, and Carlos steals a cop car. The plane is getting rolled out of a hangar elsewhere at the airport. Carlos drives a short distance to a fuel truck and snaps the neck of the director of this film, Mr. Campbell.
Was that him?
Yes, it was.
Oh, right on.
The man, the myth, the legend, the savior of the franchise.
Finally put a cameo of himself in the movie.
Carlos attaches a small charge on a keychain to the truck, activates it with his cell phone, and gets in. Bond runs up a stair truck and dives onto the stolen fuel truck as it drives past. So Carlos wildly swings the vehicle back and forth to shake him off. Carlos then lines up to scrape Bond off the side against a Douglas Tugmaster, but Bond dives and rolls out of the way, barely in time. That was a really great stunt and a really great shot.
It was.
Carlos hits reverse and fires at the chasing Bond. Bond slightly moves his head, but really doesn't flinch. This guy has nothing to live for but completing his mission. It is more important than his life.
Yeah, right.
He's been indoctrinated.
It's what really makes him terrifying, though, as an agent. It's like, you take shots at this dude and he doesn't stop. You jump off a cliff, he doesn't
Fucking
stop.
Terminator.
Right, he doesn't stop. You don't understand. He's gonna come in here and he's gonna kill everybody. He doesn't stop.
He's so awesome. This is a world-saving agent.
Right.
Carlos whips the truck around, but Bond jumps back on. They crash through luggage carts and split a double bus in half. Rip passengers.
Or luggage.
Pet crates in the luggage cart.
If I were a passenger on the bus and I survived the bus getting hit, but my luggage was some of the luggage right there in the middle, or my luggage was on a luggage cart, like, that could be devastating on a trip.
What if you were the luggage and you were fine, but then your owner just got killed on the bus, and then you'd be even more sad?
Right.
Because now you're stuck at the airport.
Now you're stuck at the airport.
Bond runs and Jim Cotta's into the cab through the shutout windscreen. They punch the shit out of each other. The fights in this movie are so blunt and real when compared to what we've been subjected to. And the camera doesn't even shake as bad as in GoldenEye.
No shaky cam, which was perfect.
It kind of shakes, but if you notice, they're more like quick cuts to very quick pans. It's not like shaking back and forth. It's like a pan over here and then a pan here, darting your eyes with the action. They're not like shaking it.
No shaking.
Cop cars get taken out. The tanker gets shot up. And a random 747 flips another cop car with its exhaust.
Plausible.
Yeah, it's been done. Carlos kicks Bond against the door, and at this point, it's so damaged, it just falls off the hinges, and Bond hangs halfway out the cab, upside down, seeing the keychain mini-bomb meant to detonate the tanker. Carlos straps the wheel with the seatbelt and grabs his phone and turns to bail, but Bond pulls him back in. The tanker is barreling toward the prototype plane, and they continue fighting when Bond grabs Carlos by the belt. Carlos head kicks Bond and dives out. Bond hits the brakes, and nothing happens. He smashes into a police roadblock and catches air. He whips the truck into a sideways slide to arrest the final momentum and stops the truck with feet to spare before damaging the plane. Bond catches his breath and steps out to be batoned and cuffed.
Nobody even said get down. They just immediately came up behind him and clubbed him in the back of their head.
Welcome to America, motherfucker. If he was black, they would have shot him.
They would have shot him if he was black.
I'm glad it wasn't Felix.
Lucky he was a white dude.
Miami's finest have Bond against the bonnet of their cars when Bond eyes Carlos a small distance away behind some vehicles, watching. Carlos hits his phone to blow the bomb, but hears the beeping behind him as Bond attached it to Carlos's belt loop, and the man panics. He finds the bomb just in time to become pasta sauce. The cops all gasp, and Bond just smiles diabolically. It seems the only difference between Bond and the villains are the goals.
Right.
Which is a theme we'll probably hear repeated later in this franchise.
James Bond in this is a fucking monster. He's like a serial killer.
He's that monster that you're glad is on your side.
Right. He's doing it for a good reason.
But he is a monster.
Right, but he's a monster. If you're in his crosshairs, you're going to get it.
Which is a big point of things brought up at different points in this.
Mm-hmm.
They point out a few different choices could have made him a villain.
Right.
And a terrible one.
Right.
But honestly, they sprinkled that thought throughout every movie in his run.
Mm-hmm. This guy's kind of a serial killer. He really likes it sometimes.
And finally, because you don't send Gandhi to fight Genghis Khan.
No,
This is good.
it's very good.
Cutting to Lashif's broker, informing him that Lashif lost a lot of money in the stock market as Bond stopped the short share plan when he saved Skyfleet stock from disaster. Lashif lost $101,206,000. Holy shit. Someone talked.
I like how he knew exactly how much money he lost.
He's a mathematical genius. Cut to Bond arriving at Demetrios' house in the Bahamas by MD-600. Solange has been murdered and left in her hammock. Villers is sick. Bond unfazed. M steps in, informing Bond he's stacking up quite the body count. Solange was tortured first. As Bond had already killed her husband, she was the only one left to question. M also expo dumps on Lashif to Bond, who he is and how much he just lost. Albanian, they believe, chess prodigy, a bit of a mathematical genius and likes to prove it playing poker. Bond is injected with a tracker chip, and the look he gives this tech who did it makes me not wonder at all why this tech isn't seen again.
You think Bond had him bodied?
I'm just saying, we never see this tech in any sequels, and I think I know why, bro. That look.
He wasn't the reoccurring Q for sure.
Nuh-uh, that dude is dead.
Or he retired shortly after that. He's like, did you see the way he looked at me?
I quit.
I quit. You gotta put me on an island. You gotta give me a new identity.
I need witness protection.
Bond is gonna kill me.
She tells Bond that saving the plane saved the company and lost Lashif so much money that he set up a high-stakes poker game in Montenegro at Casino Royale. Ba-dun-dun-dun. Roll credits.
Roll credits.
The total take is anywhere between 100 and 150 million, depending on rebuys. Bond says, cool. You want it clean or do you want to send a message? Holy shit, dude, chill. We want him alive. He's in the hole with bad peeps. We just want you to go beat him at cards so he runs to us for protection. Jesus. Fucking Christ.
I loved that. Because, like, I'm a 00 agent now. You send me out to kill people. That's what I'm supposed to do.
He's a blunt instrument. I love it.
And she's like, no, slow down here. We just understand that you're the best card player. God help us all.
God help us all. According to Villers, he's the best player in the service. And according to Mads Mikkelsen, Craig was the only cast member who couldn't play poker.
Really?
Yep.
No, I believe it.
They cart Solange away. And M says, I would remind you to stay emotionally detached, but I don't think that's your problem. Is it, Bond? And he responds with a short, no. You could stop pretending. You knew I wouldn't let this drop. When I knew you were you. This Bond feels like an orphan raised and trained to be a killer. And at this point in his life, even his smiles are diabolical.
Right? Also, at this point, you can kind of figure out M is beginning to stand for mom.
Maybe indoctrinating children isn't the best idea when you come upon one that's way too powerful and skilled. Basically uncontrollable.
Right? You realize what you've done here. If he doesn't have a mom, then we're in a lot of trouble.
If he doesn't have guidance, then we are going to be against him eventually.
Eventually, right?
Period.
It's
really genius, the nuance of these characters.
Yes. This is what makes this movie and the overarching arc of this character so fucking masterfully done.
Where a human who has been broken by the people who are meant to protect him spends the rest of his life trying to somehow restore his humanity.
It starts in the opening scenes.
Cut to Montenegro, and James is aboard a train. Almost all of Montenegro is shot in Karlovy Vary, 80 miles west of Prague. Side note, the You Know My Name refrain is all time and probably my favorite theme refrain, especially when it leads into the Bond theme proper.
Mm-hmm. The score on this was perfectly done. Music was tense and pulsing when it needed to be and absent when it didn't need to be there.
It never didn't fit. It never didn't complement the scene.
Right. It wasn't weird like Never Say Never.
Even the silence was perfect and thought out, and it wouldn't be necessarily silence, as you would hear like light percussion in the background that you might not notice, but your brain did.
Right.
Bond is looking at a menu in the diner car when a dark-haired woman sits across from him and says, I'm the money. Bond looks her up and down, smiles, and says, every penny of it. This confused me in 2006, and I thought she might be Moneypenny for about 30 seconds.
Right. No.
But no, she's just the Treasury representative, and he just likes her figures. But hey, it's Ava Green. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Very hot in this movie. And at first, I thought she was going to be the new Moneypenny too, and I thought they were going to make Moneypenny more of a agent.
And they do. She gives Bond her card with the name Vesper Lind, and Bond hopes she gave her parents hell for naming her that.
Mm-hmm.
She is shocked so much money was approved to go out so quickly, and he adds, or so stylishly. This man does not stop macking.
No, he's a Mac. I get what I want when I want it, and I'm okay if I don't.
She tells Bond he has 10 million, and she can approve 5 million more for a rebuy. If she approves. And she reminds him that if he loses, their government will have directly financed terrorism. And she has such a point here that this plan would never have been greenlit in real life.
No, not legitimately greenlit, because this is a bad plan.
This is a terrible plan. There's not even a plan. Bond's confidence in winning comes from nothing but his ability to bluff. Meanwhile, she's playing psychologically coy to measure his abilities in the matter. She's testing him without him knowing, and that's the first sign that his plan is not foolproof. But as we'll find out, she's just looking for reasons to help him fail at first. Vesper's current goal is to get Bond to lose the 10 million and to refuse his rebuy. He finally detects some sarcasm in her voice and says she doesn't like the plan. Oh, there is a plan. I was under the impression we were risking millions of dollars and thousands of lives on a game of luck. And you are. Probability is a much stronger factor in poker than bluffing. Lashif can count cards. How are you going to bluff that? Y'all are fucked.
Right? This dude is a mathematical genius who can count cards and calculate statistical odds on the fly. So, yeah, you better be good. Better than the World Series of Poker player good. But I like how she's an even intellectual match for him. Both of them can read people pretty well.
I get the feeling she's smarter than him.
I do too, slightly. But Bond's no slouch.
Because at every point, that's what it feels like they're feeding us. He goes this far and she can go further with their analyses and things like that.
Yeah.
She seems to be sharper. She seems to be quicker. She seems to be wittier, at least at this point in his early stage.
Right.
At the very least, an equal to Bond. And a true equal.
A real equal, right. I'm just as clever as you, Mr. Bond, so back off.
She is.
And she is, yes.
Vesper tests his deduction and has him analyze her. Bond starts with her beauty, being such that she has to wear more masculine outfits and be more aggressive to be taken seriously by male colleagues, which makes her prickly and ironically less likely to be promoted by males who mistake her insecurities for arrogance. Now, Bond would normally go with only child with this behavior, but with the way that she ignored his quip about her parents and the name, he's going to have to go with orphan. Now, Bond is sharp. He is learned and trained, but he's green. No matter how good he is and will become, this is his beginning, and he's still got some learning to do. He's completely off about her, but that's because he isn't imagining that her attitude has more to do with her current situation than her life as a whole.
Right.
But now it's her turn. From his suit, he went to Oxford or wherever. Cambridge, lady, though he did try the Danish tongue at Oxford once. She says he wears his suits like a man who feels as if he's supposed to, but also with disdain. So he didn't come from money and had a benefactor for schooling. And since the first thought of her ran to orphan, she's going to say he is. She's better at this than he is. She laughs at his omega and implies he's a cold-hearted bastard. She says he thinks of women as disposable pleasures. So as charming as Bond is, she'll be keeping her eyes on the money and not his perfectly formed ass. And he's tickled she noticed.
He's not only tickled, he's pleased that she noticed because he's like, oh, so you're checking out my ass then, huh? Like, that's all he took from all of that. Not that she was better or sharper or anything. The fact that she noticed his ass.
His arrogance won't let him feel that yet. Won't let him admit that yet. So he's just too busy taking the compliment, and I love it.
Right. Yes.
She asked how his lamb was, and he responds, skewered. One sympathizes. This scene is amazing. It's iconic as fuck, and it tickles me as much as it does Bond.
It does. It does. It was a very good scene. Very well played. The dynamic and the chemistry was perfect and super well written.
Cutting to the next day, Bond and Vesper are being driven in a black 1987 Daimler limo.
Super sweet cars.
Bond opens his cover packet and pulls out 2 passports and a memo. Reading it, he says, "Apparently we're very much in love." And she asked if he usually leaves it to the porters to tell him these sorts of things. The wit is so snappy and so goddamn rapid fire.
It is, and it's perfect. He's going to annoy the shit out of her for as long as he can before she gets really mad. Like a big brother or something.
He's picking on her. He has a crush on her. And this is very obviously his first crush from being taken away in prepubescent era and pretty much locked away in school and in Navy and in training. He's been with women, but you saw the way he looked at Solange. Like, it was a tool. It was a means to an end. He actually has a crush on her. And how do you flirt with a crush when you're a kid? You pick on them.
You pull her hair.
When he got nervous, when he actually liked a girl and had a crush for the first time, he instantly reverted and pulled her hair.
Right?
His cover is under the name Beach. She makes sure they aren't going to have a problem sharing a suite, and he says no, she's not his type, because she's not married.
Right.
They enter the Hotel Splendid, and Bond checks in as James Bond under the reservation for Beach. He then orders her to sign the check-in and calls her out as a Treasury representative. She's pissed. So she signs and throws the pen down, storming off to the lift, where Bond catches up and says, "The chief already knows who he is, and he's obviously decided to play him anyways, so the chief's either desperate or overly confident. But either way, that tells Bond something about the chief, and all he gets in return is a name he already has." Vesper stops dead staring Bond to say that now the chief knows something about him too, that he's reckless. She enters the lift and tells him to take the next one, as there isn't enough room for his ego. Can we just go ahead and admit here and now that this is the best Bond girl of all time and it's not even close?
Vesper Lynn knocked it out of the park as a Bond girl.
This is the best written and one of the best acted Bond girls ever, period.
Hands down.
After she's gone, Bond is given a parcel and goes outside to his 2007 Aston Martin DBS. This car. Whoa.
Freshly delivered.
If the Vanquish looked more dangerous, it would be this car.
Oh, man.
Inside the car, he opens the parcel. He looks at it, establishes his glove compartment medkit, and then takes out his suppressed weapon from the compartment and puts it in the parcel. We get some amazing shots of fake Montenegro, but the town is gorgeous, as Bond drives to meet his contact, Renee Mathis, immortalized by Giancarlo Giannini.
So perfect. I love me some Mathis.
He's awesome. I only saw him in a few things around this era and nothing really after.
He's done a couple other things, mostly French films.
Like Hannibal.
I didn't know he did Hannibal. I didn't watch Hannibal.
They are eating at a patio restaurant when Mathis fills them in. Mostly that Mathis is pretty much the only ally around, and there's no cavalry if they get into trouble.
Mathis is just here as a liaison. I'm not even sure who he's working for. The French government?
He also tells Bond the chief of police in town is in with Le Chiffre and is eating in the background behind them. That's Mike Wilson, by the way.
Always making the cameo. Good old Mike.
Mathis says there's no way to afford buying him off, as a ton of police cars swarm the area and arrest the chief, with Mathis revealing it was instead cheaper to just frame the chief for bribery with Photoshop. Which the arrest for, by the way, just happened to take place right then in front of them for dramatic effect.
Right. Mathis is a shady bird.
This scene was filmed in Lope, about 70 miles from Prague.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Cutting to later, Vesper is getting ready in the bathroom when Bond enters with a slinky martini dress and says, "For you. Something you expect me to wear?" She asks, "I need you looking fabulous, so when you walk up behind me and kiss me on the neck, like everyone else does in this movie, then everyone's mind will be on your tits and not their cards. I mean neckline." He goes back to his room and finds a suit on his bed. He storms back into the loot. "I have a dinner jacket." "There are dinner jackets and there are dinner jackets. This is the latter, and I need you looking like a man who belongs at that table." Damn!
Totally intellectual match. Wit for wit.
How the... he asks. "It's tailored." I sized you up the moment we met, she says. Damn, this girl has balls as big as Craig's.
Easily as big as Craig's.
Cutting to later, and Bond is dressed in Brioni. Nice suit.
It looks sharp. It is a nice suit. It's one of the better looking cuts on a Bond I've seen in a little while.
In a while, I'll say, yeah.
Yeah.
Vesper likes what she sees and even giggles. Cutting to later still, and Bond enters the Casino Royale, which is actually the Kaiserbad Spa.
Well, they did a nice job in changing the spa into a casino. And there are no crazy statues this time.
Bond walks through the amazing and opulent casino. So much gold and ostentation. Bond enters the private salon for Le Chiffre's high-stakes game and immediately runs into Le Chiffre. And you must be Mr. Beach. Or is that Bond? I'm a little confused. And Bond grins. Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
Right? I don't need to answer your questions. Stay confused, fucker.
Fuck off.
Fuck off.
Bond stands next to the bar and sees another player played by the amazing Jeffrey Wright. But we'll get back to him later. Carlos Leal plays the tourney director. He and Mendel, played by Ludger Pister, lay out what we all know. They're playing poker, and it's for a lot of money.
Yeah, not just a little bit of money.
Mendel is the Swiss bank representative and starts by collecting a passkey from everyone in case they win, as the money will be in escrow until the winner collects with their passkey that they privately just entered. We cut again, and the game is beginning. The bar area of this set is what we used as our background on this show before we moved to 4K and M's office.
Yeah, it's a nice set. It's very well done. They really killed it with the set decoration on this movie. You can see the class, but it's not garish and in your face.
It's ostentatious, but it's not overly pretentious. It's a simplistic elegance.
Right. Not everything is plated in gold. Yeah.
This quick scene is about posturing and the body language of Bond and Le Chiffre. In fact, most of the movie is.
In fact, almost all of the movie is, except for the endings, plural.
Except for the epilogue. We time jump to an intense hand. Le Chiffre is touching his face and flicking his chips. Bond is observing and calls when he knows that he's losing, just to see Le Chiffre's hand and confirm the tell. Vesper walks in and kisses Bond's neck, but she didn't walk in where the others could see her, and really, she just distracts Bond.
Like she did it on purpose. I want to see how you play when you're focused on my neckline.
Or maybe, just a little bit more than curiosity.
Right.
Le Chiffre wins with a full house, but he got it on the river. So it does confirm Le Chiffre was bluffing and got lucky.
Yeah. Throwing away money so he can learn tales, which is kind of how my grandfather taught me how to play poker. It's like you don't have to win every hand as long as you learn something.
Which would normally work out if you didn't have a mole.
Yeah, well.
A waiter walks past and Bond orders a Vesper Martini by recipe. It sounds grand, and everyone else wants one as well, including Jeffrey Wright's character, but he says keep the fruit. Le Chiffre is annoyed and asks if anyone wants to play poker now, and our mystery player calls out the impatience.
Nope, he doesn't like fruit or impatience. This man is taking his time, enjoying his drink, fruit-free. Suave.
I kind of like that touch. That's how I took it. It seemed fitting.
It is. It seems very fitting. It's a definitive stylistic choice in that moment to set up Jeffrey Wright's character.
Bond excuses himself, and Le Chiffre looks like he wants nothing more than to strangle Bond with his bare hands already. Bond walks to the bar and shoves his tongue down Vesper's throat. She's pissed and says he's playing like an idiot, but he says it was worth it to lose that hand for the knowledge, informing her and Mathis of the tell. Mathis gives Bond a tiny audio bug, and Vesper likes the drink. We crossfade yet again to intermission, with play to resume in an hour. Pratt says something to Le Chiffre. He leaves his inhaler, and Bond drops the bug in it. Mathis excuses himself, and Bond takes Vesper back to the hotel. Cutting to the hotel, and Le Chiffre is also coming back to his room. He opens the door and finds Valinka on the balcony. She kisses him quickly and apologizes as they're jumped by Obano and Goon. Obano is strangling Le Chiffre, demanding his money.
Yeah, Obano is a man who doesn't play. Yes, he wants his money. And he wants his money now. J.G. Wentworth, bitches. I want my money now.
cutting to the lobby as Bond enters and asks for the parcel he left for himself. They enter the lift, and there's enough room for his ego this time. Maybe she skipped a meal to get into that dress.
Maybe. She is a little skinny.
Bond puts in an earpiece for the audiobook and cocks his weapon from the parcel. Upstairs, O'Bono has Le Chiffre's life in his hands, and he's not happy. Normally, he would take a hand for this, but Le Chiffre needs it to play cards. Le Chiffre swears he'll win the money back. O'Bono tells Valinka to hold out her arm. When she resists, he says, "Hold out your arm, or I will take your head."
Yes. Well, again, the man doesn't play.
He is chilling.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's a bad guy. I wish we had more of him.
Meanwhile, Bond follows the tracker in the audiobook to Le Chiffre's floor. They immediately hear Valinka screaming. O'Bono rears back with a machete, swings, and stops an inch from Valinka's arm. He looks at Le Chiffre with disdain. Not a word of protest. You should find a new boyfriend. He's not wrong.
Right? He's not wrong. No, he's not wrong. Le Chiffre didn't say shit. You're about to chop off my girl's arm. Like, I'd have been done. Like, you didn't say shit. Hold on a second. Wait. Nothing? Nothing. You got nothing to say?
No, just take that girl's arm, bro.
Just take the arm.
Better her than me. I gotta play cards. You said it.
What an ass.
What an ass, dude. Yeah, he's sniveling, yeah.
Yeah.
Bond runs with Vesper to the stairwell and starts making out at the door. O'Bono and co. exit the suite and walk past Bond until the goon sees Bond's earpiece after hearing the faint sobbing of Valinka over it.
Shades of Carter, perhaps? He got called out because of his earpiece. I mean, he didn't have his hand to his ear, but still kind of a rookie move.
He turns and fires without a second's hesitation, but Bond ducks into the stairwell and throws the goon over the railing when he comes in after them. O'Bono comes in swinging a machete. Jesus.
Yeah, this stairwell fight was pretty good because it was all machete. Like, it was all 100% machete first, body second. And I love the choreography on that because that was well done. Very well done.
This fight is epic. It's, to beat a word to death, iconic. They throw each other down every floor, into every wall and window, punching and swinging a fucking machete. This was the craziest fight I had ever seen in a Bond film back then. It was brutal.
So good. So much realism. There are very few films that change genres. And Casino Royale changed the genre of the action spy film. Things were grounded more, less fantastical.
Oh, no, they were ripping off Jason Bourne, and that makes it suck. Why can't they rip off The Matrix and Star Wars and everything else instead, like Charlie's Angels?
Yeah, nah. Those movies have their niche, but, you know, this is a James Bond movie.
Well, that's what other James Bond movies ripped off, and it was okay. But heaven forbid James Bond try and cop a modern spy feel that's doing well.
You're right. Well, I don't understand the vitriol other than they don't like good movies.
The stunt work, the Foley work, the music, the camera angles, it's very exciting, very physical, and a lot of it looks painful to film. O'Bono swings viciously, and Bond's shirt is bloodied. Bond knocks the machete away, and it flies at Vesper, barely missing her. She's terrified and can't get out. This is traumatizing shit.
Have you ever been in a fight with a machete? It seems like it would be very fucking traumatizing if somebody was wildly swinging a machete at you or around you.
At the bottom, Bond strangles O'Bono, and they make you feel it, don't they? To twist a line. Seriously, they make the audience feel all of his kills in this movie and his losses.
Mm-hmm.
If GoldenEye brought us from college ball to the minors, this movie brings us to the majors.
Oh, easily. Every death in this movie has a weight to it.
Big time.
Big time. It's not like a casual kill, like, oh, I'm going to flick this cigarette over my shoulder and blow 40 dudes up.
O'Bono, desperate and dying, reaches for his gun, and Vesper dives in to control it, with it discharging and scaring her further. But she does help save Bond.
Oh, yeah.
If you know what's going on, and if you're listening to this, you probably do, then...
Spoiler alert, no spoilers. This movie's been out for several years.
If you know what's going on, then you know her mission up to this point was really to see him fail. So her, in this moment of terrified, pure panic, animalistic instinct, to dive on him and protect him and get that gun away was literally the first sign that she was falling for him.
I can't really disagree with that, but I think the first sign was the suit.
The giggle. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true too.
And Bond fell for her, like, immediately.
For real. Immediately.
Immediately.
Obano dies, and Jesus, James, you're a literal bloody mess. He tells Vesper to have Mathis clean this shit up, and we cut to Bond in his bathroom. He cleans the blood off as barely any of it was his. He drinks a huge gulp of scotch and steels himself. We cut to Bond, rejoining the table, and Lashif auditioning for Hannibal early by noticing Bond changed his shirt.
That's funny. Mads Mikkelsen is the emotive captain of the world. He can convey so much with just a look. Cross those eyes. It's quite amazing. If you guys are fans of his, you should watch a movie called Polar, which is hands down one of his best work.
He hopes their little game isn't causing Bond to perspire, but Bond won't consider himself in trouble until he starts weeping blood. And as I said before, this actually seems to be Lashif's only insecurity, so that burned.
It's the one thing in Lashif's life that he cannot control.
With that almost an insert scene over, we cut to Bond going back to his hotel as they are breaking for the night. Bond sees no sign of Vesper, but sees a shattered wine glass and hears the shower running. In the shower, he finds a dressed Vesper cradling herself in the fetal position as the water rains over her. She's shaking and can't get the blood off her hands. It's trauma blood in her mind. So he does the only thing he could think of, and that's to lick her fingers clean. Is it weird as fuck? Yup. But honestly, what would you have done in this situation? What would you have said? Anything to make it better.
Right? It's weird as fuck, but it's super tender because it's all Bond knows how to do to make the situation better. And he'll do anything to make it better for her.
Well, at that point, there's no blood on her anymore. She's drenched. She's freezing. She's traumatized. She's seeing blood that isn't there, and he wanted to taste her fingers.
Took a moment to like, man, maybe she's vulnerable?
He warms up the shower and holds her, and we slowly pan out to the gorgeous accompaniment. Cutting to the next morning, Bond catches up to Mathis, conveniently just in time to see Mathis spring another trap on Lashif's man Leo, played by Emmanuel Avena. Mathis put Obano and co. in the boot of Leo's 1972 ZIL 117 and tipped off the cops. As they question Leo, Mathis rings a mobile he left in the boot, and that'll keep Lashif looking over his shoulder.
Right? The guys who just tried to kill me wound up dead in the back of my car.
We get an amazing zoom on Lashif looking out his window and wiping his eye, then fade back to the game. Down to 8 players, and our mystery player is bleeding chips. Bond is up pretty hefty and has a good hand. He bets $500,000 and sees Lashif touch his head near his eye while flipping his chips. Lashif raises to $1 million and everyone folds but Bond. Bond re-raises to $2 million, so Lashif goes all in. They have around the same money, and Bond has to go all in to call, which he does. But Lashif played Bond. He was winning all along and knew Bond knew his tell somehow. Meaning, either Mathis or Vesper told Lashif that Bond knows, and Lashif used it to trap Bond.
Immediately, his mind would go to Mathis, because that is the one new person in his life that is already proved to be a pretty fucking shady guy.
Resourceful and shady.
Right, resourceful and shady. It's very ambiguous as to how this guy gets his job done, but he gets the job done. And he doesn't, it's not a pretty way he gets it done. It's very ugly and dirty, and somebody's going to jail every time. So, and it's not Mathis. And it's not Mathis, so.
Oops. You must have thought I was bluffing. The man twists. The game is called for a break, and everyone clears out but Bond, who's in shock.
I like the pan-out zoom on Bond's face when he loses that hand. It's like a gut punch, because he was positive.
Like I said, they make you feel all his kills and all his losses.
Yeah. The cinematography in this movie is total God mode.
Vesper finds Bond outside, and he asks her for the $5 million to buy back in. She says no. He's angry, but she's standing firm.
If you watch this movie and rewatches, knowing everything that you know, Vesper gives away her game and her facial expressions the whole time. I mean, during that whole exchange, if you're watching Vesper, she knows already what's going to happen. You can see it in her face. Lashif has to win.
She blames his ego and says Lashif wins. Though I'm like, you shouldn't have done this in the first place, but now you've gone this far and the game ain't over.
Logic, right? You've already lost 10 million. What's another 5 on top?
With that rejection, Bond goes to the bar and orders a martini when the bartender asks if he'd like it shaken or stirred. Bond responds, "Does it look like I give a damn?" I've always loved these moments that go out of their way to distance themselves from the previous films, but only highlight them.
Yeah. We're going to distance ourselves from this movie, but we're going to show you that we're distancing ourselves. And I think that's probably part of the turnoff for some of the older heads, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we're going to spit in the face of your traditions.
Aw, I'm so sorry after 40 years they wanted to do something different for once. You didn't get enough of it the last 20 times.
Yeah, I know.
Bond sees Lashif and reverts. He grabs a knife and goes after him. But before he gets to him, the mystery player grabs Bond. Quite a game, right? He introduces himself as a brother from Langley. Felix Leiter, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo, woo. Possibly the best Felix of the game. This Felix Leiter is so much smoother and suaver than all of the other Felix Leiters.
I think he's definitely actually smooth and suave, but it really helps that he's got that voice.
The Jeffrey Wright voice does definitely help.
Felix tells Bond to keep his head and just win the game. Bond says he can't buy back in, and Felix says he'll stake him, as Bond has the better chance. Just let the CIA have Lashif when it's over, and England can keep the winnings. Damn, what a deal.
That's America money right there.
We don't give a shit. Just give us what we want.
We don't give a shit. Right, give us what we want. I like how Bond was going to accomplish this mission with or without money. No way Lashif was leaving that game a winner.
He reverted.
Oh, he was gonna go fucking stab him to death right there in front of everybody.
Everyone. Oh yeah, he was. It was gonna be the embassy all over again.
All over again.
Back at the game, and Bond is back in and upping the blinds. Time jump to later, and he's making a comeback. There's a cool moment where Lashif touches his face without thinking, and then notices and tosses his cards.
Right? When you know your tell is a tell and you forget that you have a tell.
Shit, oops.
Yeah.
Bond orders his Vesper, but Valenka poisons it. Bond starts feeling off, and then woozy. He buys himself out of the hand and runs to the bathroom, grabbing salt from a table on the way. He chugs salt water and vomits, but the poison is strong and working fast. Cutting outside, Bond stumbles through the lot and is clipped by a couple of vehicles. He makes it to his Aston and gets in the passenger seat. He calls MI6 and inserts a sensor into his veins. The techs at MI6 tell Bond to attach the defibrillator pads to his chest. The scan comes back as Digitalis, a nasty, real poison with a phony-sounding name.
Yeah. The name sounds fake and made up as shit, but it's a real fucking poison and
it is
usually
bad.
Quite fatal. It's made from a neurotoxin from a fish, so yeah, it's bad.
They tell Bond to use the combi pen first or he'll die anyway, so he hits his neck with the pen and then goes to defib, but the leads were disconnected. The two techs leading Bond, albeit confusingly, are played by Paul Badakarji and Crispin Bonham Carter, the third cousin of Helena Bonham Carter.
I guess these guys kind of count as Q, I guess?
They're techs. They don't count as shit.
They don't count as shit.
But it's all too much, too late, and Bond collapses. His heart monitor sounds, which means he either flatlined or got close, depending on the machine. And since defibbing actually does nothing for the former, we're going to go with the latter.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're flatlined, I could shock you all day long. And unlike what you think in the movies, it's not going to start your heart back up. That's not what it does.
Yeah, that's not what it does.
Vesper chased him out in time to attach the lead and hit the big red button. And Bond literally pops up all business, asking her if she's okay. She even looks at him like, "Are you for real right now?" And says, "Yeah."
Like, I don't know what they put in your drink, mister, but perhaps you should go to a hospital.
The techs tell him to go to a hospital, and he says, "Yeah, sure, after I win this game."
I appreciate the high-tech efficiency of the gadgets in the car this time. I mean, that's some pretty realistic shit. Somewhat.
Somewhat.
He
jumps up like nothing happened and strolls back in for more. Meanwhile, Felix is cleaned out, but Bond sits back down saying, "I'm sorry. That last hand nearly killed me."
Always with the jokes.
We fade once more. 4 players, Bond, Le Chiffre, Enfant, and Fukutu, played by Ade and Tom So, respectively. This is a big hand, 24 million in the pot already. The community has the Ace of Hearts, the 8 of Spades, the 6 of Spades, the 4 of Spades, and the Ace of Spades on the river. Bond checks. Fukutu goes all in, and so does Enfant, raising the pot to 35 million, and Le Chiffre adds another 12. He and Bond stare at each other, Bond gauging, feeling, thinking. Le Chiffre giving nothing, but Bond goes for it and goes all in with another 40.5 million. Le Chiffre is beyond confident, and he thinks he'll call Bond on that bet. The pot has the whole prize of $115 million on the line. This is the final hand, unless Fuchs or Enfant wins, but like that's happening.
That's happening, right?
Fuchs has a flush. Enfant has a full house. Le Chiffre dramatically reveals his hand to be a higher full house. He feels cocky. He's got this. But then Bond flips the 5 and 7 of Spades. The straight flush, 4 to the 8. Bond wins.
Bond wins straight flush. I would have went all in too.
If I had a straight flush, I wouldn't have even thought that long about it.
Right.
I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Wait, what are we talking about, guys? Why are y'all folding? Le Chiffre swallows hard and storms off. Bond gives the dealer, played by Daniel Andreas, a fucking $500,000 tip. Jesus, what a 2 days work dealing cards.
Right? Here's a $500,000. Why don't you go retire now?
Thank you.
Right? Thank you. Are we married?
Bond walks to a delighted Felix and tells him that Le Chiffre is all his. Vesper approaches and congratulates Bond, and he takes her back to the hotel for dinner. He tells her he's naming his drink the Vesper, because once you've tasted it, it's all you'll want to have. He then cringes at his own line, which half bails him out of it. She giggles anyway. But I'm here to tell you, the Vesper is very much an acquired taste.
Yeah, it's not delicious.
Then you get used to them, you learn to love them.
You can, yeah.
Like a mojito. He stops eating caviar long enough to tell her he's figured out her necklace is an Algerian love knot. She tries to play it off like she thought it was a random necklace, but he immediately calls that out. Someone gave that to you. He's a very lucky man. She does the whole, how can you do this? You don't have to kill people routine. And he retorts sharply with, why is it people who can't take advice always insist on giving it?
She's already fallen for him, and now she's looking for a way out, but she can't give away the game. Ava Green did a fantastic job of acting this part out throughout the whole rest of the movie.
She gets a text and says Mathis needs her and departs. Bond thinks Mathis betrayed him, so he's now worried for Vesper. He runs outside in time to see Vesper swiped off the street and into a black 2005 Jaguar XJR. Bond runs to his Aston and speeds off after, down the winding dark road. He jumps a small hill and almost runs over Vesper, who's somehow been dumped in the road with the goons cleared out of the shot.
At that rate of speed, he could have easily ran her over.
Bond swerves hard to avoid her and flips his car 7 times. It is the most insane stunt for me yet in a Bond film. In fact, they really did this, and it set an actual record for real car flips in a movie at the time, so you can't say that anything had been done like that before. The poor stunt driver's brain cells.
Right? Concussion much?
I hope he was paid well for that. I do. I hope he got a nice bonus after those 7 flips.
Yeah. All the stunt guys in Bond movies, like the truck driver who came in and did the 2-wheel stunt first take. Like, I'm high on meth, let's get this done. Wow.
Dude, you know what's funny about that is that's probably how it went down.
That's probably how it went down. But all of these guys, they deserve extra money.
Bond is down and lucky to be alive. Krat takes a knife to Bond's arm and cuts out his locator chip. Le Chiffre breaks the chip and says Bond's friend Mathis is really his friend Mathis. They toss Bond and Vesper into the Jag and drive to a black site. Very industrial. Rusted metal, door cranks, hooks and chains.
Old ship is what I was thinking. Very old ship.
Cutting inside, Crack cuts the wicker bottom out of a chair. They strip Bond and bind him to the bottomless chair. The music, the atmosphere, the look on the sheep's face. This is beyond tense.
You know, as soon as that dude started cutting the bottom of that chair, I was like, nothing good is coming out of that right there. Like, there's nothing good coming out of that.
Bond can hear Vesper screaming, but is left alone with the chief, who has a huge rope tied into a very dense knot at one end. The chief says, "Wow, you've taken care of your body." He plops the knot on Bond's shoulder and leans into his ear from behind. Such a waste.
He's very menacing.
For a chess guy.
For a poker player. This guy's life, I mean, literally, this guy's life is spiraling out of control as we speak. He owes a lot of people a lot of money he doesn't have. People are going to kill him, but he's still ice cold. He's still fucking in charge.
He's talking about the brilliance of Ava Green in this, but like Mads Mikkelsen in this one sequence here, this torture sequence, literally spirals from just desperate to completely losing his mind in one sequence. It's really great.
Yeah.
The chief swings the rope and hits Bond's balls, which, if you're a guy, you know. And if you're a girl, you never will go give birth. The chief has never understood the need for all these elaborate tortures when the simplest thing could cause more pain than a man can possibly endure. He winds up hard and, oh my God, good God, man, that hurt me. Jesus Christ.
Every one of them hurts.
Oh, fuck.
Every one of them hurts.
The chief warns Bond that not yielding soon enough won't leave much to identify Bond as a man. And yeah, swinging like that.
Yeah. Pummel a scrotum to death. It looks like that's Le Chiffre's favorite thing.
Ooh.
This is not the first time. He's got this rope. He's got this knot.
Krat knew to take that bottom out.
Yeah, he knew.
This is his first action.
Right?
The chief wants the money, of course, and he hits Bond again, causing him to finally scream out. Bond rages. He could spit bullets. The chief demands the password, and Bond responds by telling his captor that he's got a little itch. Down there. Would you mind? To which the chief obliges. Bond groans, composes, and says, "No, no, no, to the right." "You are a funny man, Mr. Bond," the chief breaks. He swings again, and Bond screams, "Yes, yes, yes." He is forcing through unimaginable pain, and his laugh is half sob. But he does laugh at Le Chiffre, who's taken aback. Bond jeers. The whole world's now gonna know that Le Chiffre died scratching Bond's balls.
That was a good joke. That was a good joke.
That was more than a good joke. That was a power move like no one's business.
Total power move. And he's tied to a chair getting his balls racked with a knot.
This is supposed to be your greatest torture, and I'm sitting here just diminishing it like you're just tickling my balls for me.
Right?
And humiliating him. Like, oh my God, it's so great.
This is so much better than the laser table, you know? Where there was a threat of the balls being tortured. This one is, straight balls torture.
This one is better than any of them that we've ever had before because I felt this in my empathy nerve.
Everybody felt this.
Whoa. I died? Yes, because no matter what you do, I'm not going to give you the password, which means your clients are going to hunt you down and cut you up. But you are so wrong, because even after I slaughter you and your little girlfriend, your people will still welcome me with open arms, because they need what I know. Bond actually agrees to this and whispers the big picture.
The big picture.
If Bond wasn't right and saved at the last moment, that was the moment Bond just kind of accepted it.
Yeah, because he knew that's what he'd have to do. Nobody's going to come save him. You either give up the password or you don't.
I'm not giving you the password, so fuck you.
Yeah.
Le Chiffre says, "Give me the password, and I'll at least let her live." He slaps Bond and says, "Do it soon enough. She might even be in one piece." Bond chuckles. Le Chiffre resigns himself and smiles. "You really aren't going to tell me, are you?" Bond, still laughing, says, "No." Lashif kicks Bond over and pulls out a blade, declaring his intention to feed Bond his own manhood. He leans down, but hears suppressed shots and screams in the hallway. The door opens, and Mr. White walks in, drawn on Lashif. "I'll get the money. Tell them I'll get the money. Money isn't as valuable to our organization as knowing who to trust." White responds and shoots Lashif in the head, who falls in front of the camera. Cut to black.
Obviously, Lashif works for an organization that you can't be flipped, and he was already flipped. Too many money problems, too many people after him. Now the CIA has him, even though he doesn't seem like it at the time, but they had him. So, yeah, Mr. White came in and cleaned up the mess that he made.
You know, he got hired by a shady organization to do something, and he fucked up the job, and he got taken out for it, because you can't be playing around.
Can't be playing around.
I don't know if you noticed this, but the female scream in the hallway isn't Vesper's. It's Valenka getting shot. It's her warning Lashif, and it gets cut off because she's shot. So Valenka dies in that scene in the background.
Ah.
And good, because she poisoned Bond. Pretty sure it was an afterthought.
I'm pretty sure it was an afterthought, too, because I didn't think about her after any of that.
We fade into Bond regaining partial lucidity in a hospital bed. He sees Vesper and Mathis, but falls back out of it. We hard cut to much later, and Bond is healed up some and out in a wheelchair on the lawn of the sanatorium in which he's convalescing. This was shot at Villa del Balbianello, where they shot the Lake Country retreat in Star Wars Episode 2.
Oh.
I hate sand.
I'm sorry, but every time I hear that line, I just chuckle to myself because it's the dumbest shit on the face of the planet. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. Oh, God. Who wrote that?
George Lucas. Mathis is with Bond and asking him if he has any ideas as to why the organization left them alive. He also pours something into water to give to Bond, which Bond sees. But it could have been medicine, as he said he was supposed to get Bond to drink something. Maybe it was poison. Before any later movies fleshed it out, I think it was meant to be up to the viewer.
I think it was meant to be up to the viewer. Because, again, even at this point, you're still not quite sure whose side Mathis is on.
Mathis is almost intrusive with his questioning, and it's definitely sus to Bond. But Bond's already convinced Mathis is bent. Mathis asks Bond, "Can you remember anything that will help us?" "Help us?" Bond asks. "Or help you?" As two suits come in and tase Mathis before dragging him away.
Smooth like butter, MI6. Into a van you go.
Cutting to later still, and Vesper is sitting atop Bond as he awakes outside. She couldn't resist waking him. Every time she does, he looks at her like he hasn't seen her in years. The dialogue gets really cringy.
Are we on the honeymoon part of the movie?
Oh, yeah.
It's my one complaint about the movie. I know they had a lot of wrapping up to do, but I think they could have wrapped it up maybe a little more.
They need it. I've thought about this. Taking anything out would be at the detriment of anything after it.
Right, I know. They needed to do it, but it just, I don't know.
I am also with you. I just desperately feel like something needs to be taken out of this, but every single thing that's in there is something that's needed.
Yes.
She says she feels like she's just been born. And he says, "Wouldn't you be naked?" She says he can have her anywhere. Here, there, wherever he likes.
Is that code for anal sex? I've never understood this about girls.
Bond is a little surprised, as she seemed to loathe him before. She plays it off as being a complicated woman. And hey, look, it's Mendel with the passcode briefcase. Bond is disappointed Mendel didn't bring Swiss chocolate back with him from Switzerland, and Mendel laughs generously at the joke. Only, it wasn't a joke, and Bond sits nonplussed and disappointed, and it's great. It's childish, but not for nothing. It's in service to his character, which to this point in the world is more of a trained tool than a man, and as Vesper pointed out, just goes through the motions he believes humans are supposed to.
Right. This movie very clearly sets up Bond as a trained sociopath.
It just shows, like, even though he's so smart, so capable, so trained, so adaptable, he's still mentally, emotionally somewhere at the point of, at best, a juvenile adult. At best, like a teenager,
Adolescence. He's somewhere still in adolescence.
He has a very developed social aspect of his brain. And that's almost the entire point of the rest of the series. Starting with Vesper is how that grows and where it takes him, ups and downs.
Right?
Mendel asks for the account number, which Vesper provides. Bond also tells her that she could do the password and spells out her name. She sits, head in hand. Mendel says the funds have been transferred and departs. Vesper, choking up, tells James if all that was left of him was his little finger, he'd still be more of a man than anyone else she'd ever met. And he leans in slowly and says, "That's because you know what I can do with my little finger."
Very cute. Very cute.
I thought all that was cringy.
Yeah, this is the moment where she realizes that he really does love her.
She asks if he's put his armor back up, and he says he has none left. She stripped it from him. They kiss, and we cut later yet again. It's raining, and Bond can run now. They burst into his room and get at it, but it's not just banging. They can't keep their hands off each other, like a real couple in that honeymoon phase. They're incredibly voracious and handsy.
Were they handsy, Matthew?
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I mean, before they just kiss and then lean down slow, and they're running in, tearing their clothes off, rubbing their hands all over the place real fast. And yeah, man, it's different. I like it. It feels passionate. It feels better. Not we're just shooting the same sequence. It's handsy, baby.
Baby?
Cutting to the beach, Bond says M still isn't expecting him and should still be squeezing Mathis. Bond tells her he thinks Mathis squealed about the tell and his locator tag, as Mathis was a company man and would know about them. But she's proven over and over that she's observed and analyzed every inch of him and probably noticed the fresh, odd piercing mark.
Right? If not outright told about it.
She asks Bond if everyone has a tell, and he says yes. Everyone except you. And that should be a red flag, but homie's love sprung.
Yeah, it is always a red flag.
You can read everyone, but you can't read her, and that's not saying anything to you at all. Like maybe she's hiding things from you on purpose.
That was a big problem with my ex-wife.
Love sprung.
Yeah.
And since it happens once on his first outing, it forever shapes his future relationships. Once again, this isn't a sin. It's brilliant.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He don't trust any bitch after this. Till the end.
There's no going back for
him.
Trusting anybody or anything.
He professes his love for her, says he'll quit and run around with her until one of them has to find an honest job, and then informs her that it will be her, as he has no idea what an honest job is. He admitted his cell is being a mooch, but it works, and they roll around in the sand.
He's like, I don't know what I can do for work. I kill people for a living, but, all of his skills, he could find a job. Who are you fooling?
Cut to Venice and our duo on a sailboat, living their best life. The Spirit 54, used for the filming, was the first sailing yacht to pass the Canal Grande in Venice for 300 years.
That's pretty cool.
Vesper steers, and Bond emails M on his Sony Vaio. Bond resigns from MI6 the same way I used to write my 2 weeks' notice. Dear boss, I quit.
I quit.
Peace.
Deuces.
As they trawl through the canal, Vesper sightsees, taking photos, when she notices a bloke in a bad hat and an eye patch. She seems to recognize him, and when they lock eyes, he seems to recognize her as well. She also seems visibly upset by his appearance.
Right? He put himself out there to be seen.
Cutting to them banging again, because if Ava Green was my new girlfriend, I wouldn't even get out of bed. But she stops the frolicking and says she has to go to the bank. She's acting a little sus about it, too, similar to how she was acting before she was kidnapped. Bond only notices that she stopped wearing her love knot, though. She says it was time to learn she could forget the past. Just then, she gets a text and says it's her employer, then does the slow read out what I'm typing shtick, which literally always means they aren't typing what they're saying they are. If your girlfriend texts like that around you, you need a new girlfriend.
Nobody reads out what they're texting back. Just so you know, guys. It's always sus when somebody does that, because nobody fucking does that.
They walk to the lobby, kiss, and separate. The interior of the Grand Venetian Hotel here is actually the National Museum in Prague, and was the site of the opening sequence of the 1996 Mission Impossible film.
Oh, okay.
Cut to an establishing shot of St. Mark's Square. Big Moonraker vibes. Bond watches over the square before going back in from his balcony and hears Vesper's phone get a text. She left it. M calls right after to ask why Bond hadn't deposited the winnings back to the treasury, and Bond says, "That's a shame. I didn't think they'd miss it," as he's hit by a brick wall.
Right, the money's not there, and only one person has the money. Yep, it was your girl, homie, the whole time. If you have never seen this movie, it is a horrible gut punch. Especially from James Bond's perspective, because he was ready to retire. He's done. He had his first 007 mission, and he's done. He was ready to retire, sail around the world with this chick, give up that killing life. And she fucking used him.
And it's the opposite of when he loses all his money in the cards and they pull away. They zoom in to this extremely claustrophobic close-up of him. It's the same gut punch, but it's the opposite reaction to him. He is zoned.
Right.
Bond says he's on the way to the bank right now and hangs up. Bond runs downstairs, calling Mindel and opening Vesper's phone. Mindel tells Bond the funds were transferred to the account number Vesper entered, and it appears they're being withdrawn from the Venice branch in the square as they speak. Bond looks at Vesper's text and sees one from the name Gettler. Gettler, played by Richard Sammel, is Eye Patch Guy. He said to meet in 30 minutes. A lot of phones didn't have passkeys yet back then, especially this style of brick phone or non-smartphone. She knew leaving her phone meant he would see this. She was just gambling he'd see it in time.
Hoping that he would notice that she betrayed and then try to come save her, because she knew she was done.
I think she really knew she was going to die, no matter what. I think she was really just trying to give him breadcrumbs on the people doing this to them.
Yeah.
But he does see it in time, and he's pissed. He takes off across the square and spots Vesper walking away from the bank. He follows her through the alleys, arms himself, and suppresses his firearm. Coming upon her clandestine meeting with Gettler, Bond shoots a sentry goon in the neck, but is spotted by Gettler, who takes Vesper hostage and threatens to kill her. Bond says, "Allow me," and leans out of cover to engage, but is immediately pushed back by autofire from the windows above. Now, you notice we said every kill in this movie is so heavy. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but that is gone. As soon as that light switch turned on him with Vesper's betrayal, he goes up to kill the first goon, and for the first time, he just neck shoots a dude and moves on.
It moves on, yeah.
It is the first time neither the movie or Bond pay any kind of treatment to a death, and that is by design.
Yeah.
Gettler takes the girl and retreats into a palazzo being renovated, taking his squad with him and leaving Bond to follow. Bond looks through the decrepit door and sees water wing pontoons holding up the building as the foundation pylons are worked on. He also sees goons taking position, so he shoots one of the bladders, causing the building to shake violently.
Yeah, I wanted to do some research on these things, but I couldn't find too much on it. But apparently, I guess that's kind of how that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do use these giant water wings, pontoons, whatever you want to call them, they're called both, to stabilize the building while they work on the old wooden pylons. They corrode, and so what they'll do is they'll float it on this building and they'll go and remove them out from underneath to put in new ones. So basically, this building doesn't really have any foundation underneath it but water. Bond uses this chance to run in, and the score strikes up. Bond is near surrounded by goons firing at him, so Bond shoots another bladder, and the building is slowly sinking now.
I was going to say, if you look at Vesper's face as soon as Bond rushes in and shoots the first bladder, she realizes that he's killing her. Because he just comes in like a raging bull, without a care or consequence. He doesn't understand her situation. All he sees is those two guys up there, those things down there in the bottom. I'm going to shoot one. She's like, "Fucking idiot, I am locked in this fucking elevator. If this building goes down, I'm a goner."
But she's not locked in, really. Not yet, because later she turns the key to keep him out. I mean, she's technically kind of being held prisoner in there right now by dudes with guns, though. So, I mean, not much difference. I get what you're saying. I don't know if that's what was going on. For me, it felt like she was afraid for him. Like I said, I think her intention was to leave him breadcrumbs, not put him in harm's way. I think she knew she was dying from the beginning, like M says.
Yeah.
Bond climbs up a floor and reloads. He watches reflections in broken shards of a wine bottle. And when a goon closes in, Bond whacks his ass with a plank of wood, causing him to discharge his weapon into his goon friend, who falls into the water below, while discharging his weapon into the remaining bladders.
Yeah, kind of a
Rube Goldberg?
yes, it's kind of a Goldberg
Dude got shot, and he shot
effect.
another dude, and that guy also died
That
shooting.
dude shoot.
Just two dudes who died shooting.
2 dudes died shooting other dudes.
Well, one shot another dude. You're in a small space with auto fire. None of this is really beyond plausibility to me.
No.
The building is in full collapse mode. The money falls into the water. Vesper is being held in one of the cage lifts, as if a holding cell, and Bond is still fighting his way to her. Bond meat shields a dude when Gettler shoots at Bond. Then the guy is fucking crushed when the lift falls on him. What, did that guy sleep with your wife, Martin?
Did he have to be crushed? I mean, the building was collapsing. There's no way he was making it out of there alive in the first place.
He'd already been riddled with bullets as a meat shield, and they crushed. I'm like, Jesus, dude, this guy was overkilled.
I think that was the guy that was supposed to be the main hench, and that's why he got the big, brutal death. But he wasn't much of a henchman. I didn't even know his name.
That was just some random dude.
Was it?
Yeah, that was no one.
It wasn't the bald dude that was following him around.
Krat was just killed off screen when Volenko was.
A
goon engages Bond and slices Bond's chest with a putty knife. Gettler shoots Bond in the back with a magic auto-fire nail gun. That's not how those work.
Do you know what you gotta do to a nail gun to make it work like that?
You definitely have to rig the safety features.
Yeah, there's all sorts of safety features.
Bond fries Drywall Goon with a stray cable and beats Gettler a little before nailing him right in the eye. Literally. He pulls the nail out of his back and runs to Vesper. He tries to get in, but she says she's sorry and locks the door. The building continues sinking and the lift slips, crashing into the lagoon below. Bond dives in and swims down. He reaches the gate, frantically pulling on it when she grabs his hands, kisses, and screams out all her air. Bond's had Navy training to expand his lungs and lives long enough to kick the cage open and pull her up to the roof of the building, still above water.
What kind of emo suicide was that? Did you want to be saved? Do you not want to be saved?
She never wanted to be saved. Her death was part of the deal for his life. She knew that. I mean, they have people everywhere.
They have people everywhere. And that's not hyperbole.
He gives CPR and rescue breathing, but she's dead, Jim.
You know, in that whole scene in Daniel Craig, as soon as he's done giving her CPR, you see on his face that he would have killed everybody to bring her back alive. And then it moves immediately into grief because he knows there's nothing he could do.
And this is it. For the first time since he was a child, he's lost something, if not the only thing he cared about, and it's about to reshape him.
You can see vengeance born on his face.
His eyes well up and go bloodshot red. He collapses onto her and pulls her into his arms as we pan out to see Mr. White watching before walking away with the money.
Yeah, how the fuck did he get the money?
He reached down and grabbed it. The roof was on the water line. That's the thing that bothers you?
Like, that money should have been sunk at the bottom of that building.
Why? Maybe it was a Pelican case. It's airtight. It probably was.
You make a plausible argument. The case could have floated. I was thinking, hard-ass aluminum case, sink like a stone.
They showed it floating. They had an insert of it floating.
Did they? I missed that.
Cutting back to Bond on his boat, we hear M over the phone on Vesper. She had a boyfriend in French Algeria, ergo the knot, who was supposedly taken hostage, and she was extorted into cooperating. They both agree that she left her mobile on purpose, knowing he'd check it. M asks if this clears Mathis, and Bond says no, it could be a double blind. He's learned to trust no one.
Yeah, tough lesson to learn.
M tells him to get back soon, and he agrees, resolving the resignation. She offers him time to himself, and he asks why he should need it. The job is done. The bitch is dead. One of the best lines in the franchise, and it shows he's still near the beginning of his growth, not the end of it.
Yeah, nowhere near the end of his growth.
M asks Bond to ponder why he wasn't killed that night, saying it's obvious Vesper made a deal to spare his life for the money. I'm sure she'd hoped they'd let her live, but she had to know she was going to her death. M laments the trail going cold and hangs up. Bond looks at Vesper's things and sees a seashell that could be location specific, but more importantly, he searches her text inbox for messages sent from herself and finds one. It says for James, Mr. White, 392-622-2431. 8675309.
309.
We cut back to the lake they shot the convalescing scenes at. This is Mr. White's estate, filmed at Villa Legata on Lake Como. Mr. White pulls into the driveway in his 2006 Jaguar XJ8 and gets out to look at the lake. His phone rings and he answers it. Bond says, "Mr. White, we need to talk." Mr. White asks who it is, and the microsecond he finishes the last syllable, his ankle is shot out from underneath him. Have fun limping forever now.
Right? You, sir, are now a cripple.
That ain't never working 100% again.
No. You'll be lucky if you have any kind of use of that foot.
Mr. White desperately crawls toward his house, but Bond walks in front of him and says, "The name's Bond. James Bond." He says the thing finally.
He did the thing.
The theme strikes up and the credits roll. Holy shit, what a ride. And only better under the microscope.
This movie was fantastic. Only better under the microscope. It's not just a good Bond movie, but it's a good movie. Period.
I'm giving this movie an A+. This film is exponentially better than every single Bond film that's come before it. Every single one. The locations, cinematography, directing, acting, writing, everything is masterfully done here. Bond is a vicarious series. As such, people relate differently and like to connect to different things. Some like campy fun adventures. Some like the playboy aspect and want to see themselves as that. For me, as ex-military and a largely learned man, I prefer this type of Bond. Something that doesn't make me roll my eyes every 5 minutes at how juvenile the fantasy is and how unrealistic the tactics and outcomes are. This film, at all points, is a thrill ride. There's no rough edges, there's nary a mistake, Bond feels like a real person, and yet he still very much feels like Bond. It's just, now I believe he can actually fight a group of dudes and win. Now I believe he's a trained agent out to save the world and not my stepdad playing ego fantasy. They return to the extravagance of vacation destination locations, and everyone upped their game in the off-season. The titles, cinematography, and directing were all greatly improved from what was already, mostly, getting better and better. And, like GoldenEye, it wasn't just the next step, but a great leap forward.
I don't disagree with you. I also give this movie an A+. This is hands down one of the best put together films of the century. The ending notwithstanding, this movie was by far, hands down, the best Bond movie ever made. And you guys can fight me on that. Change my mind. The cinematography, as Matthew was saying, on point, perfect. The return to the basic formats of the score. Congos, 60s twang guitar, the big brass hits, just the overall aesthetic of the whole movie is just a return to form, back to the retro 60s, but modern day. It's old but new, if that makes sense. Familiar but new. How about that?
For the kill count, how many do you think Bond kills?
10.
11. Very close. 11 die by other means for a total of 22. For the pre-title. The pre-title is almost an art house film. A black and white prologue on Bond getting his 00 status by showing his first 2 kills. It's tense, intimate, and beyond exciting. No skydiving or skiing, and yet it's the best opening sequence ever. No frills or fluff, just Bond being badass as fuck. First place.
This pre-title sequence was hands down the best pre-title sequence. The starting of it in the black and white crushed it. That was an immediate callback to the 60s spy movies. Total noir, dark, shadows, everything was magnificent. And then you get the brightly lit, fucking visceral, grainy footage bathroom stunt fight. The contrast between those two scenes is just magnificent. First place.
The title. The song by Chris Cornell is one of the best. I could just listen to this song on the radio outside of it being a Bond song, and it's just as amazing. The titles are slick and thematic. Very well done, modern titles, in a style I would have used myself. Danny Kleinman is amazing at these, he is, but he just seems more style than substance. He gets a vision for the titles bound by a theme, but that's always as far as they go. I just wish the titles were deeper than surface value, like Maurice would do, or that kid did with GoldenEye's title sequence. Second place.
I gave the title sequence also second place. As much as I did appreciate the color palette and what they were doing with it, and I appreciated the lack of naked silhouettes and nobody got the treatment. That was good for me. After watching all of these movies back to back to back, it's nice to see something different. It was a little refreshing. But, overall, they were a little bit kind of plain. Some titles had more pop and fire. Some titles had better songs, so I'm going to give this one a second place, solid second place.
Moneypenny pickup line. Moneypenny doesn't even exist in this movie, and she won't appear until Skyfall in this run. 22nd place.
I gave it 19th place, because there is no Moneypenny.
Q gadgets. While Q isn't introduced yet, Bond has plenty of gadgets at his disposal. Tracking chips, audio bugs, future medkit glove compartments. The gadgets are there, just more grounded and realistic, which I'm not complaining about after Invisible Cars. The no Q himself bothers me far less than it does Carter, so 8th place.
So, it does bother me that there is no Q, but I dug the gadgets in the car this time more than I would, like you said, the Invisible Car and all the other nonsensical stuff, like rockets and stuff. That stuff is cool. And when I was young, it was cool to watch the supercar do supercar shit. But as an older enthusiast of hardcore spy movies, it's nice to see a defibrillator and a fucking gun case in a secret car. So I gave this 4th place.
Cars. The 2007 Aston Martin DBS, a high-performance Grand Tourer that was the first DBS model in 35 years. It was also a stopgap between the first and second generations of the Vanquish that was based mostly on the DB9. 6-liter V12 over 500 horses and ungodly torque, with a clever glove compartment with a medkit and a gun holder. 2nd place.
I gave it also 2nd place because the lines on this fucking Aston Martin are just, If I could fuck a car, it might be an Aston Martin.
Main ally. Felix Leiter. Not being seen since losing a leg in Dalton's era, Felix makes his return. And he's yet another actor. But everyone is this time, so it's way more forgivable for once. Jeffrey Wright is an amazing actor. He feels very natural and has a charm to him. Felix doesn't do much here, but lose enough to give Bond all his money instead. Yet, without that, Bond's mission was dusted then and there. Sometimes it takes an army, sometimes just some cash. But the result is the same. 8th place, and out of 24, that's pretty good.
I may be biased because it is A, Jeffrey Wright, and it's B, Felix Leiter, who's probably my favorite Bond ally. And I feel that he did a little bit more than just give him money. He stopped him from going in there and fucking going to prison for killing Le Chiffre on a poker table. Not only did he give him the cash to go spy back in, he actually stopped our boy from making a big mistake on the rest of his career. So I'm giving him 3rd place.
Villains. Le Chiffre. The Cypher. Mads Mikkelsen is the 3rd person to play this character, but that doesn't mean anything to the only guy who can replace Anthony Hopkins in our mind as Hannibal. He's that good. Is the villain physically weak and vulnerable? Yup. Offensive deformity or disease? Both. But he's a rich and powerful evil mathematical genius for whom playing poker for money isn't the worst idea. When you can count cards and work out probability like a human computer, his plan is actually more foolproof than crazy. Too bad for him he's in a Bond movie and not the real world. None of that matters. What matters is the intensity in which he's played here. He could be the weakest villain ever. They even flaunt his vulnerabilities and insecurities because it only makes him creepier. He's the scariest Bond villain we've ever had, period. And it doesn't matter because he will pay people, get you, and win. And he's already a step ahead, 1st place.
I enjoyed Mads Mikkelsen's performance in this role greatly. He was very intimidating in the role. By far, hands down, the best Lashif we've seen yet. But, the other two Lashifs were ridiculous. So, well, Peter Lorre wasn't so ridiculous.
Yeah. But Orson Welles was ridiculous.
Orson Welles was ridiculous, yes.
He was a magician.
However, Mads Mikkelsen is not ridiculous. This dude was terrifying, and I know they tried to play it off as him being infirm or weak and a little sickness, a little science baby, but he didn't seem like that. Seemed like this dude worked out. Seems like this dude probably go a round or two with James Bond.
Oh, yeah. He was tough as hell. The highlighting of what vulnerabilities he had just made him creepier.
The way his life was falling apart in shambles, yet he remained in control. Like, it just made him even more terrifying. It's like everything's spinning out of control, so I'm getting more desperate, but I'm still a cold mathematician type guy. So, anyway, first place.
Main hench, Alex Demetrios, that slimy bugger. He's not the right-hand man, but he is the main hench of the film in an antagonist sense for Bond to go against. Pratt stands around and whispers in Lashif's ear, but Demetrios is out doing the plan that Bond has to stop, eventually to the two fighting to the death. Demetrios is not a credible threat to Bond, and does come off exactly as him described. Slimy, angry. He does nothing but lose at every turn. His plan, his temper, his car, his girl, his life, 20th place.
Oh, man. Yeah. I felt there were some henchmen that were a little worse than Demetrius, but you're right. He was a straight loser. I give him 13th place, very middle of the road.
Bond girl, Vesper Lind. Where do you begin with Vesper Lind? Her neckline, as Bond suggests? This is the smartest girl with the quickest, sharpest tongue. She's as smart, or more so, than Bond here. Her balls just as big. This is the chemistry and relationship I expected from the Tracy relationship, and it's actually earned. She does betray him, but really, it's the other way around. She was always extorted, and in the end, made sure Bond lived to save the world in the future. But really, it's about the depth of the relationship here, which we've not seen before, and it will profoundly shape this Bond's every step moving forward for the next 4 films. First place.
Vesper Lind is the intellectual match of James Bond, hands down. There's no other way to put it. She's the best match for this James Bond, and the way that she was written was superb. I cannot disagree with any of the statements that you have made thus far. I might add that Ava Green's acting was superb.
And it was.
Yeah, and it was. Upon rewatch, all the clues were there. All you had to do was look for them. First place.
They learned a lot, I feel like, from World Is Not Enough, because they've sprinkled their twists a lot better since then.
Oh, yeah.
One-liner. Now the whole world will know that you died scratching my balls. There are a lot of witty quips and one-liners in this movie, but they're far less cheesy amusing and more meant to be biting sharp wit and sass, depending. They're not funny. They're badass and far from cringy. Most of it is the best dialogue we've been forced to listen to so far. Most of it. First place.
Yes, I gave my one-liner first place as well. I wrote down 3. There were several in this, but there was 3 that struck me, and the one I'm going to stick with is the one from the pre-title sequence, which is, yes, considerably. When he cuts that guy off, he gets progressively more cold-blooded with those one-liners, from Timothy Dalton to Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig. Cold-blooded, to the fact, to the point. Yes, considerably. Easier. I shot you from across the room. I had to barely lift a finger. It's definitely easier.
Locations: Prague, Uganda, Madagascar, Bahamas, Miami, Montenegro, Venice. They shot a lot of locales for real, but the Czech Republic did stand in for a lot of places such as Miami and Montenegro. But here's the difference. I never could tell before. I never knew that wasn't Miami. And if they can go and show off breathtaking vistas, they did. If they had to fake it, I couldn't tell. That's how it should be done. And boy, did they find gorgeous vistas. They've also finally returned to what we used to call the money shot style of shooting these locations, and really giving it that destination feeling, instead of the locales feeling like just another place as they oft did in Brosnan's films. First place.
The locations and set designs on this particular film were superb. As you said, everybody leveled up on the off-season because they did a fantastic job of highlighting the locations. And you're right. If they weren't there, you couldn't notice. Because the jungles of Uganda looked like Uganda, and you said that was a set. I was like, they did a fantastic job. Because I could have swore that was the jungle. I was like, it may not be Uganda, but that's in the jungle somewhere. Yeah, in England. But, yeah, and the set designs were perfect. It's like everything was austere, but also very classy, very tastefully done. Everything from the pre-title sequence all the way through was perfect. I gave us first place for locations.
Protracted attempt to kill Bond. The ball-smashing torture. Jesus, ouch. Thinking about it again just hurt. Okay, empathy nerve, calm down. But for real, I cannot imagine having my testicles crushed in this fashion, and I'd have given up or passed out, or both. Where was I? Oh yeah, first place. Ugh, okay, y'all got me on that one.
I'm going to also give this first place, just because.
Take it.
You don't get much more clever torture than that one. Like, nobody's going to take that shit. Nobody's going to take that shit. Sorry. Man, woman, child.
You win. Here's your passcode. I am sorry.
Before you even start swinging that big ass knot, homie, let's talk about this for
Let's talk about this. What do you want? You want a passcode? Like, hold on. Why is he cutting a hole out of that chair? Hold on. Who wants my passcode? Mission or plot. Bond is sent to capture a bomb maker for questioning and follows hunches and leads to stopping a terrorist attack on an airliner in an attempt to manipulate the stock market, which leads to Bond playing the orchestrator of said attack in a high-stakes game of fucking Texas Hold'em for $115 million to drive the man into protection when unable to repay debts to nefarious types. The caveat being, if Bond loses a poker game, the UK will have directly financed terrorism. It is nowhere near the more ridiculous plots we've had, but it does stick out as the silliest aspect of this more grounded movie, even if plausible. 10th place.
You know, when you said it out loud, I was like, that sounds ridiculous.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah. I didn't realize that until you said it out loud. Yeah, that's a pretty dumb idea. However, I did like the straightforwardness of it. The plot was pretty much simple. You know, I need money. I'm good at gambling. I gave it first place because it's very understandable. There's no convoluted mystery involved in this plot.
Stunts. The stunts are amazing, from brutal, visceral, ultra-physical fights to a parkour chase up and down a construction site, Bond running through walls and putting his body through the ringer, all the way down to the car flip, which is my favorite stunt so far in the series. It is still jaw-dropping to see that and pray for the guy inside each time. First place.
The stunt work on this was next tier level. Again, they ramped it up. The choreography and the fight work was Jason Bourne without the shaky cam, which is amazing because you can actually see what's going on in the fight scenes.
The shaking and the pans in the fight lead you with the action too, when they do happen.
The dichotomy between the way Bond fought and the people he fought, because everybody fought a little bit differently, like the parkour runner or the guy in the bathroom or whatever. And the way Bond fought was the same. It was like whoever did the fight choreograph and stunt work on this, they did a fantastic job. It forever changed the way that they do action in spy movies now. And I'm not going to credit that with Jason Bourne, because Jason Bourne changed the way they do fight scenes in spy movies, where this changed the way they do spy movies, period. First place, stunts.
I think what you're saying is this took a little bit of some Jason Bourne sauce and added it to their already almost fully made and fleshed out James Bond soup, and it just really helped flavor be perfected.
Yeah.
The score.
The score? A return to form. As I was saying earlier, the very last James Bond hit in this movie was on point. You had the 60s guitar twang, dang, twang, 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 twang. You had the Congo drums in there. You had the big horns. No, there was no techno. There's no techno. There's a nice backbeat. This movie was made in the homage of a 1960s James Bond movie, but with a modern day feel and twist. And if you guys can't see that for what it is, then I'm sorry, because that's what it is. And it is fabulous for it.
They did go back to their roots far more than the Brosnan era. Shit, even the Moore era.
I'm going to give this score a 3rd place, because overall, the music rocks in this whole movie.
The score is, in a word, perfect. It fits at all times and never outplays a scene. It is a classic orchestral score that feels right at home in the new modern Bond. The title's refrain and other themes are amazing and blend almost perfectly into each other at times. It's crisp, clean, and sharp. This is by far Arnold's best work. Thank you for leaving the techno behind. First place. Movie.
Well, let's be honest, Matthew. What do you think? First place. Come on. Come on. I know you're going to say first place. I'm going to say first place. We both agree that this is the best Bond movie that we have seen so far out of the movies we have seen. It will probably be the best Bond movie made to date until something new comes out to beat it. We shall see. This movie is not just the best Bond movie ever made. It is one of the best films. I think I've said this 3 times now. One of the best films of the century. Hands down. Bears repeating. And that's a short list in my opinion. But you can put Casino Royale on that list because it was a nearly perfect film.
From the fade into Prague to the movie going on longer than 2 minutes after the villain died, everything about this lets you know you're not in for the same 40-year-old ride that we've done 20 times before. Every bit of it was refreshing and reinvigorated the franchise. In fact, it was beyond more popular than ever and about to become event cinema. This film helped push Bond from a niche vicarious fan franchise to can't-miss blockbuster billion-dollar movie territory. And it all started here with the best Bond movie ever, practically cracking on the ones before and splooshing every woman in the audience with that beach scene. We could go on for hours in more detail. Carter wanted to do 2 more episodes, but this episode is probably going to be long enough as it is. First place.
First place. There you go. And you're right. I could have done 2 more episodes on this movie alone.
And as they said, Bond will return, and so will we. Until then,
I'm Agent Carter.
And I'm Agent Sedgwick.
Stay spying, y'all.